In the year 2017, an innocent man accused of a crime has a choice. Hard time or prime time. It's a game between life and death.
I've got a little surprise for you. We didn't want to break up a winning team, Ben. So here they are, ready to go for broke, right by your side. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben's buddies.
Judge James.
Judge Forrest.
Judge Brendan.
Without further ado, it's time to start running! On your marks, get set, go!
Welcome to Glowburn, a podcast dedicated to the Mutant Crawl Classics role-playing game.
Welcome to Glowburn, a podcast about the Mutant Crawl Classics role-playing game and old-school post-apocalyptic adventuring. I'm Judge Forrest.
And I'm Judge James.
And for The Great Disaster today, we have a special guest.
Down in the shelter.
Welcome to the shelter. This is where we highlight our Mutant Crawl Classics and Dungeon Crawl Classics gaming experiences, as well as our other role-playing gaming experiences. James, what have you been doing lately?
So I've had a couple big weeks in my gaming career here. A couple weeks ago, as part of the road crew locally at Phantom Games, I ran a playtest of my Scattered Over Centaurus 7 funnel. And it's going to be at Gen Con this summer, so I'm trying to prep it now and get it ready. It's my Aliens meets Pitch Black meets Predator homage.
Oh.
And it was kind of bittersweet because, so I'm there, I'm set up, I'm getting ready to run the game, and I go through my spiel. This is what it is. And one of the people at the store is like, "Did you hear what happened today?" I said, "No." And they said, "Bill Paxton died."
That is bad timing.
And it was like, it totally jacked me up at the beginning of the game. Like, I got it going and we had a good time, but like that kind of sat with me through the game. So it was a tough game, just because I don't know, for me, Aliens was in some ways more influential on my early years than Star Wars or Star Trek was for sci-fi. Mm-hmm. That gritty, dark, futuristic thing kind of stuck with me. So that was a good game. I'm excited to run it at Gen Con. And then I had my weekly Numenera game this week. So that was a good time. And besides that, this isn't really gaming, but this is kind of post-apocalyptic in that I've been prepping for GaryCon coming up. And while doing some prep, I was listening to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. Mm-hmm. And he, this week, or not this week, but recently he did something called The Destroyer of Worlds. And it's kind of how hard it was not to drop the bomb between like 1945 and 1963. All about what it took to not get engaged in nuclear war. And I was a big fan of Dan Carlin's other hardcore histories for, like, you know, the Punic Wars and the Roman Republic. But it was pretty neat to hear how close we came and just to hear what it took. And so I'm thinking that how cool it could be maybe in the future, maybe for MCC to run games that took place maybe right after that period. Yeah. Get kind of some kind of 60s stuff, post-apocalyptic 70s. Yeah, so good times. And finally, I talked Judge Mike Bolam into committing to let me play in a Metamorphosis Alpha game next month with him, and I'm going to play a robot named Tweaky.
Oh boy!
Oh boy! God, cry.
Okay, well, you have fun with that.
So what have you been playing for us?
Well, first of all, I have to say, when you said you were prepping, I thought you were going to say that you've been, literally down in your shelter, like buying ammunition. Yeah. So I'm glad you're not quite there. I'm glad it's still fantasy. So I played in Doug Kovac's Morning Nights DCC game, which is a blast. My character, like most of them, he's just a wuss. So he cowered while the rest of the party fought this 4-armed maggot man. So my character, Marink is his name. He decided, while this combat's going on, he found something else shiny. It was a golden door, a golden portal in another room in this inn where we were trapped, basically. And so I thought it'd be a good idea to stick my head into that golden portal. The next thing Doug said to the rest of the party was, well, you see a headless body slumped down onto the floor. And we left it with Marink being a floating head, somewhere floating in another dimension. So I don't know how this is going to end. I don't know if I need to just roll up another character, but he said I was still alive. So I don't know. I'm very curious to see what happens. As far as other gaming goes, a couple weeks ago, I've been running this AD&D 2E or second edition campaign for a while now in Greyhawk. And this last week, I introduced my players to the Migo. And most of the players don't know Lovecraft, which is really kind of fun. So,
I have no idea what that is.
Oh, boy.
I don't know Lovecraft.
You should be very, very scared if Amigo shows up. That's never a good thing. And then right after that, it attracted, because it was using psionics, it attracted a Thought Eater. Remember from the Monster Manual, first edition Monster Manual?
No.
Sure.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah,
they're like duck-looking things that float around and eat your thoughts. They're horrifying.
Yeah, they are horrifying, and there's not much.
I remember that, but that was in the back of the Complete Psionics Handbook for second edition.
There's a picture in there as well. Yes, but it's basically the skeletal platypus that eats your brain or your thoughts. So I had a great time. I don't know if my players did. They were eventually able to defeat these creatures, mostly because my dice rolls were just horrible. And they paid a price, though. The mage in particular, he lost intelligence permanently because of the Thought Eater, which is always fun to do to your players. Well, okay.
They love that.
Maybe I'm just cruel. Anyway, so that was a couple weeks ago. I had to cancel my second edition game this week because I was on a Skype call to my RPG publisher headquartered in... No, I can't tell. It's still a secret.
If you say it, everyone's going to know where it is. You say headquartered in, because there's so many publishers there.
Yeah, no, it's a secret. But it was a really good talk with the publisher. We talked about direction, production, some design considerations. I'm super, super excited about this project. It's going to fill a niche that has not been filled in the role-playing literature, not in the same way that we're going to be doing it. So I'm pretty excited. And the book's going to have a lot of appeal to non-gamers, too. I could see it being used as a reference outside of gaming. So that's all I could tell you. I could tell you more, but I'd have to kill you. So I'd rather leave that to killer robots like Tweaky.
I was going to say, is the entire source book a Tweaky source book?
Oh, gosh. No. How to kill Tweaky. So, and then outside of gaming, in terms of media, post-apocalyptic media, I watched Turbo Kid this last week. And I watched a little bit of the movie The Road, but then I stopped it because I have the book sitting on my shelf, and I'm like, I really want to read the book. I love Cormac McCarthy's other stuff, and I'm excited to read the book The Road. That's about as grim a post-apocalyptic vision as you can possibly get. But anyway, also been prepping for GaryCon. I've been working on my piece for Reed Sanfilippo's American Survival Guide Kickstarter. Also, I don't remember if Reed's released pictures of both of the covers of the American Survival Guide. I know he put one out there, but there are two covers. Do you guys recall if he's got both of them out there?
I've seen the one.
Okay, there's the one with the guys on the vehicle, getting chased and
Oh yeah, I've seen them both.
Okay, so the other one's the Delve. Yeah, the Delve cover. It is amazing.
Yeah.
It's the kind of piece of art where I think, man, this will be like a Tramp earpiece, 40 years from now, people look at this and be like, that is awesome still.
Absolutely iconic.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a masterpiece, just instant masterpiece. So good stuff. So that's what I've been doing. What about you, Brendan? Well, don't take all night because I know you could. What have you been doing lately?
Sure. Well, as you know, it's con season for me, so I just got home from CoastCon a couple of days ago in Biloxi, Mississippi. Had a fantastic time there, and I had a funny convention thing happen to me there. For my first game, I was set up to do my DCC adventure, Neon Knights.
Right. I played that.
And yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah, it was and 'twas a good time, my friend, and had a great time playing with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to run it. It's kind of it's sort of like the farewell tour for it because I've actually just turned that in for publication. So that's that's on the docket now to be done at some point. And I wanted to just do it a couple more times and sort of like run it and sort of put it to bed, I suppose. But when I get there, I went to CoastCon 2 years ago, and I played with a very enthusiastic group there that signed up for a couple of my games. And lo and behold, all 4 of them came back this year and wanted to play again. And they had already played Neon Knights.
Oh, no.
So I instead pulled out something that I have been working on, which is my 5th level DCC adventure, And You Will Know Us by the Trail of Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd only...
That sounds painful. Just the title sounds painful.
Well, I'll tell you, I had a lot. You know what? I'll tell you that. I peek behind the curtain. No, this is what happened. I had to get my GaryCon events in like a long time ago, and I wanted to do one more different thing. So I just came up with a title, and I'm like, okay, I'll write an adventure to go with it later. And They Will Know Us by the Trail of Dead. And then
that's a great start.
Yeah, so I do that a lot of the time. So it kind of like was rolling around in the back of my head for a while, and I had an idea, and then suddenly the final idea popped fully formed into my brain. So but I hadn't actually done too much with it. So I was ready to run it for CoastCon, but I wasn't ready to run it that day. So I wound up improvising it, and I had such a great time. The players were wonderful, and I really enjoyed doing it through them. I ran it one more time at CoastCon, and then I ran one X-Crawl adventure, my 2017 Please X-Crawl Don't Hurt 'Em, which is with the DCC rules.
Yep.
And I ran my traditional Sunday game in at 5 points. Yep. Which I think you were in that as well.
No, I wasn't. I have heard the rumors though.
Yeah, that's my Sunday special game. Usually, I think I'm going to run it for the last time at GaryCon this year, and then that's another one that either it will get published or it will go the way of all things, and But I had a great time. CoastCon was a lot of fun. I had a lot of really fun players, and just people just mobbed up. At one point, we just kept adding and letting people go out of games and such, and people. It was a very informal setting. It was just sign up sheets at CoastCon. So if people came by, they wanted to jump in, I let them jump in for a while. I let people who only could play for an hour jump in and play just for an hour. And it made it very lively and kind of hilarious. We just had a really great games, all the way through at CoastCon this year. Yeah. A lot of fun.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, but I've been doing I've completely neglected my home game. I have a Friday night game. I don't even know what they're doing anymore. I've missed so many sessions.
Do you know their names still, at least? Like who's
the one guy? Oh yeah, I'll never forget. It's the guy with the lip and the hairy dude, and oh gosh, what's his name and his girlfriend? I don't know. No, I remember him. It was like I missed a lot of last year because of going to conventions, and then I was around for the holidays, and I did played with them several nights, and then all of a sudden, boom, WinterCon, DungeonCon, CoastCon, and now this. And this Friday, I will be in town this Friday, but I'm taking my wife to a concert, so I'm going to miss this time too. So those guys, they're literally sending around. I'm still in the email that they do to organize it, so I'm getting these emails like, "Hey, I got the new characters for this." I'm like, I don't even know what you guys are doing anymore. I'm so out of their loop. So miss those guys, and really looking forward to getting back to it. Don't know when I will be able to because I'm on the road a lot this year.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
You shouldn't let the concert stop you. You should just have them come with you and play there. I mean,
good idea. It'd be like groupies.
Yeah,
Oh
just
my.
everyone show up, say, look, we're gonna theme this in a whatever kind of concert it's at. I mean, I guess depending on the kind of concert it is. If it's like Tori Amos or something, it won't fit it.
No, you know what? It's Schmancy Jazz Lady from Germany, and I actually should have remembered it so I could mention it in case it came up tonight, but I don't remember her name. We saw her last year.
I thought her name was maybe Schmancy Jazz Lady. I never heard of
That's
her.
the name of the band. Schmancy Jazz Lady. They've been together since the 70s. Really impressed. Oddly enough, all male. No, it's a jazz conductor, and she has a very good jazz band. We went and saw them on a friend's recommendation last year, and we were kind of blown away. It was like one of those concerts. Like afterwards, we went out for coffee, and we're just like electrified. Just talked about it for like an hour. And can I remember who it is now? Maybe Maria Schneider. That sounds familiar. Maria Schneider.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's right. Anyway, it was it was really a great show. We're gonna go see her again, and her orchestra tomorrow night. So I will once again miss my Friday night game. I'm not even sure what edition of what they're playing anymore. I know they did like a one-shot Call of Cthulhu in the middle of all that I completely missed. My friend Brian Kortmosh is actually a designer, and he writes a lot of stuff for Chaosium. And they ran a playtest of his new adventure that I missed entirely, which is a shame because I do love my Call of Cthulhu.
Man, James, now you've got me picturing like gaming deadheads out in the parking lot eating burritos, waiting for Brendan to go on stage.
The closest we ever came was I didn't run anything. I played Love Letter, the card game, in a parking lot before a Dave Matthews concert, and we played Gloom. We played Gloom also. My hands have involuntarily turned into fists for about 3 things from that sentence you just said there, James. Just like, what the James? Lovely.
Well, at least he didn't mention David Lee Roth, so that's good.
I'll tell you, I saw Van Halen when I was a kid, and with David Lee Roth, they were they were Van Halen.
I'm sure they were.
Not a Dave Matthews fan then.
No, and I've tried because here's the thing. I went through a big jam band phase, and a lot of jam band people will cross over and also listen to Dave Matthews, and I've just never been able to.
Were you a Fish guy?
I have seen Fish. Actually, I almost followed Fish for a while. Yeah, I came close. Like my friends were loading the car and trying to talk me into like quitting my job and like just going and following them up the seaboard. I kind of followed the Grateful Dead around for a summer in their later days. And I had a really good time doing that. And I thought, oh, Fish. And I didn't do it. And I kind of regret it now. I mean, I'd probably still be about doing what I'm doing right now. It's not like, I missed law school for it or something. But, I went through, I don't know. I consider myself a serious music person. And I kind of like I have gone through a phase of everything, had years where I listened to nothing but metal. I went through a big jazz phase. Did go through my jam band phase, but no, never played a game at a concert before. And I wasn't trying to be disparaging to your taste, man. I could mention a dozen bands that you guys would lynch me for right now.
Probably.
I have no taste. It's actually okay.
Have you ever? I'll tell you one that every chance I get to see. Have you ever heard of the Yacht Rock Review?
No.
No.
Bunch of young guys that do covers of like Christopher Cross songs and. That era of like smooth rock.
Isn't that the like when you get caught between the moon and New York City guy?
That's the guy. Yeah, they're so funny. Like there's a group of guys that follow them around from show to show, and they wear like blue blazers and Commodore hats, and it's such a funny scene because they take it really seriously. Wow. And I don't know, man. Yacht Rock Review. There goes my cred, but yeah, I don't know. I listen to all kinds of stuff. So
yeah, but I mean, come on, you're doing a module. Named after a Black Sabbath song.
Okay.
How cool is that?
Specifically, I think it is, I'll tell you what it is. When I went through a very intensive metal period in my youth where I was like, for several years, it was all I listened to. And then, and I kind of had a later day one too. At one point, I found myself in a cubicle situation with me and 2 other people, and we all went through all of our music, and like they hated jazz. The one woman was all about Hanson, The one thing we all could kind of get together on was like late 70s, early 80s metal. So like I had like in my 30s, I had like a revival where all of a sudden we listened to so much Dio, you know, and bands like that. And there's something about Dungeon Crawl Classics from the first time I actually held a book in my hand. Like to me, it feels like the old movie heavy metal and that entire era of stuff like Wizards and things. To me, I feel like DCC is the most metal game that's ever been created.
Well, I'm pretty sure when I first saw the rulebook and I opened it up, rather than angelic voices, I heard Holy Diver going off in the background. You know,
Dio, 100%.
Right.
This is Dio's. You know, if Dio was going to like be the soundtrack to any role playing game, this is it.
Oh yeah.
And I find myself like when I work on DCC, it's the only time I really do a whole lot of metal these days. I mean, it's just not my inner beat much more. I mean, here, getting on 50 or whatever. But yeah, like I sit down and work on DCC, and boy, it's just I have this great like metal mix that I do for working on the design stuff for this, and yeah, it's mostly Black Sabbath, and Black Sabbath is a really special band to me.
Yeah, me too.
And,
me too.
Yeah, they really are, and it's like I wanted to when I did the first DCC, like not Dungeon Crawl Classics, the older stuff, the 3.0 and 3.5 stuff. But the first DCC adventure I ever did was Hole in the Sky, which is, of course, a Black Sabbath song as well.
Yep.
And, like, to me, that's, it was like, I don't know. It was like a lot of things came together. And that song's really special to me. And the lyrics of that song really inform that adventure,
Yeah.
Like, it's like the secret shape of that whole adventure is that song run through like a fairy tale matrix. You know what I mean? So I don't know. And I'm still trying to find my soundtrack for Mutant Crawl Classics. I just told Jim this the other day, like when I wrote I wrote an MCC adventure, and I had a hard time getting started. I had a very, very brief amount of time to do it in. And I had a hard time getting started because I really couldn't figure out what to listen to while I was writing. So
Dave Matthews Band.
Is that the true sounds of the apocalypse?
It's actually, if you go into the it's like the second page of the preface or whatever. Jim Wampler says it. He says Dave Matthews Band.
I'd actually point you back to Dio. Go listen to Last in Line and go watch the video for Last in Line. That's about as MCC as it gets. Seriously, it is.
I totally get that. But for me, have you ever heard Homo Sapien by Peter Gabriel?
Yeah.
I finally put that on repeat and listened to it for the whole 2 weeks that I wrote the adventure, which is something I haven't done in a long. I used to do that when I was a kid. I used to obsess over like a single song and listen to it like for just days, weeks, And I kind of fell into that with this one. I don't know why, but the idea of like mankind as like a science experiment was very much informed that writing.
Yeah,
so.
Great. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to Voices of the Ancient Ones.
Voices of the Ancient Ones.
Welcome to the Voices of the Ancient Ones. This is where we field your emails and listen to your concerns. You'll find our contact information at the end of the show if you'd like to reach out and submit a show or a segment idea or ask questions about the game. Feel free to share with us what weird post-apocalyptic science fantasy world you're tromping through right now, and if you find that old esoteric mutant book, movie, or comic out there, mention that to us too. So, James, why don't you go ahead and take our Voice of the Ancient Ones this time?
Okay, I'm freaking out right now. Okay, so I'm stepping into fanboy territory as I'm about to read a DM Kojo email. So let me just. Okay, I'm
Deep
okay.
breath.
I'm
Deep
okay.
breath. You're
I'm
good.
okay.
You're good.
All right. Hey, Glowburners. Great job as always with episode 5 on robots. I really enjoyed the analysis and game ideas you shared. One of my favorite resources that I wanted to share with you is from the Rifts game published by Palladium Books. Their Rifts Sourcebook 1, either the original or revised edition, is a wonderful resource when it comes to robots. It contains the Palladium robot character class and some really cool robot construction rules that could apply to any game with minor tweaking. It also has some cool robots that you could modify for any post-apocalyptic game, such as Scalebots, a lot of robot vehicles, a very cool AI called Archie 3, and robotic dogs, robotic monster mounts, and even human-looking warrior women robots. All great stuff, and the original edition of the book is pretty cheap online. Finally, I wanted to give a call out for two of my favorite movie robots from the 80s. The robot spiders in the movie Runaway and the killer robot Hector from the movie Saturn III. Keep up the great work, DM Kojo. So I'm wondering, I've never seen Saturn III.
Oh, it's good.
But is Hector the same Hector that does the audio for us? Is it the same robot?
Again, I could tell you, but I would have to kill you.
Yeah, that's probably best I don't know then.
Yeah, it would be bad.
Is it Runaway the movie with like the tongue guy that does metal stuff?
Gene Simmons.
Yeah, it's Gene Simmons, Tom Selleck.
Yep.
That was Tom Selleck. You know what? I couldn't remember who the main character was. I was reading the letter. I'm thinking, who was in that? That was Tom Selleck.
Yep.
He's my mom's favorite actor.
When I was a kid, there's that scene in that movie where the car's driving and they're looking behind them and there's like the heads up display and the little robots are racing along the street and like the robot bombs. And I used to pretend in the car that like the defrosters in the back window was that, the back of my dad's awesome. Ford LTD.
I remember some science fiction RPGs getting kind of corrupted by that because they had the gun with the seeker bullets. You'd shoot the bullet and it would like turn around corners and find you when you're hiding behind stuff. Yeah, so all of a sudden it's like when I was playing Traveler, it's like all my players wanted to have those guns. No, you don't get the Gene Simmons gun. Sorry.
And didn't the robot inject acid into you?
I think so.
Ooh.
It's been a while.
The little killer spider robot.
I think that
Poison
sounds
or
right.
something.
Yeah.
It was something awful.
Yeah, something you didn't want. Windex.
And the Saturn III is like one of those.
Windex.
Brendan, have you seen Saturn III?
I saw it when I was a kid. I want to say I watched that at Johnny Proyos' house on HBO when we were little.
It was on Cinemax. For some reason, I'm thinking Cinemax. But anyway,
he was rich. He had it all.
No, that's actually a pretty underrated. I should say it was an under-marketed movie. It didn't get marketed very well at all. And it's kind of it's a sci-fi horror, really. It's good. It's good. It's not great, it was the 80s, but it's not terrible either.
Didn't it have Harvey Keitel in it?
It did.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who the woman was. Of course, they all look like Farrah Fawcett when you're that age. But I
think it was Farrah Fawcett.
Was it Farrah Fawcett?
In fact, I'm almost. if I had a fiver, I'd lay a fiver right now that was Farrah Fawcett.
Maybe my memory's good. I don't know. Anyway, all the good-looking girls look like Farrah Fawcett back then. So who knows? All right. Well, hey, DM Kojo, thanks for the shout out. And regarding the Rift sourcebook, I've seen that. I haven't actually used the mechanics. With Palladium games, my bigger experience with Palladium games was with the Mechanoids, which was a comic book / role playing game that came out it would have been before 1984, and it was basically killer robot android things that killer robots, and they went around corrupting other races, which was really cool. You had like these alien dolphins that were mutated and corrupted and tortured by these robots and became totally evil.
That sounds metal.
It is. They're awesome. I wish I think maybe I have one somewhere in my boxes, but I think it was 3 issues of that comic book that came out. And anyway, I was just so stunned by these mutant dolphin cyborg things. I mean, they're just the coolest things. And oh man. I think my MCC group's going to have to encounter some of those guys. I think.
If you're looking for any like Rifts action now, I don't have it, but I know that the Savage Worlds Rifts just dropped. I think it's in print now. You can pick it up, and I don't know what they're covering with robots. I know how Savage Worlds covers robots. I can't imagine it's that different, and it probably won't be like source book level coverage of that. But some similar tastes.
Well, and all the Rift source books are just thick with stuff. I mean, they're just loaded with good stuff. It's just a question of tweaking, for your system. But man, there's just an infinite variety of very cool things in the old Rift source books.
The Great Disaster.
Go!
All right, so we are here with Brendan LaSalle, and let's give you a chance here, Brendan, to give an introduction to who you are in case someone right now is like waking up in some cryopod in an abandoned shelter and has never heard of who you are. And they're like, why is he on my podcast here? So
why do we even care? Yeah, absolutely, sure. So and let me take this opportunity to say thanks so much for having me on. My name is Brendan LaSalle, and I am a game designer. Probably was best known originally for creating X-Crawl, which was my first thing that I did, and I've been writing and publishing that since 2002. Since about the mid-2000s, I've been working with Joseph Goodman, and I wrote a few of the early dungeon crawl, the pre-DCC RPG dungeon crawl classic adventures. I wrote several of those for Joseph. Joseph started licensing X-Crawl in 2002 and started putting out adventures and source books for it. I guess actually all the adventures, all the source books were penned ahead. And most recently, I have written a Mutant Crawl Classics adventure, which I guess I'm announcing for the first time here on y'all's podcast. MCC, the Apocalypse Arc, which will be one of the stretch goal adventures from the Kickstarter.
Nice.
So
I have to brag here for a second because, Brendan, I'm going to be sitting in your game in 2 weeks. In that module, I'm going to be playing that thing with you, man. So my expectations are high.
Yeah, me too. So bring your hot dice.
I have some. You've seen them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah. Better come correct though. I'm telling you, it's gonna be a good time. Good time.
I'm excited.
Me too, man. I can't wait to play again. It's been. Was it 2015? Was the last time we played?
Yeah, that was the Neon Nights.
Yeah, I think it's 2015. Yeah. At Gary Con.
Game Hole. Game Hole.
Oh, you're totally right. At Game Hole. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, good times. So but jump in and I'll see you at Gary Con, my friend.
Oh yeah. So tell us, what can you tell us about the new module?
Sure. Well, it's an idea by Jim Wampler. It's actually a way I've never worked before. So Jim created it was Jim's idea, and Jim gave me the blurb to work with. And before I ever started writing it, I actually also had cover art. I don't know if I can say who did the cover art. It's awesome. It's one of the DCC usual suspects. It's so cool.
I can guess it's one of two artists. I can guess.
Yeah. It's Steven.
Flip a coin.
I'm telling everybody, and it was amazing. So, and I never had the opportunity to work like that before. To actually go from, all right, here's the idea. Here's the blurb. Here's the art. Run wild with it. I've been trying forever to do I've always wondered if we don't do things backwards when writers work with artists the way we do typically in the RPG.
I totally agree. You know
what I'm saying?
Yep.
I would love to. For years, I've been saying, let me work it backwards. You all come up with. I mean, how cool would it be for someone to send you a stack of art and say, okay, here's a front cover, here's a back cover, here's a bunch of interior art. What do give me a story.
Yes. Yes.
So this is as close to date as I've had to work like that, and it was, it was really, really, really fun. But it's a 5th level adventure, which is the highest level DCC anything I had written to date. I play tested it first with Tim DeShane and his people, and then Tim ran it, and then I ran a Skype game for some of my friends back west, and I'm really happy with it. I think it's going to be I hope it is going to be a fun addition to the canon of DCC stuff. And when we first started putting it together, it was so cool that Jim even thought of me to do this. I was like, oh, this is so great. So I called Jim up and I'm like, so Jim, I really want to make this a lot like, Mutant Crawl Classics-y, but I really was looking to work in the genre I'd been looking to work in since I started writing role-play. Really, in fact, since I started playing Gamma World, which was, of course, Thunder the Barbarian.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this is going to be my Thundar game. I was like, so this is like my big spoiler. So I was like, if this is going to be a Thundar game, I have to be able to come up with a really good name villain that has the possibility of reoccurring throughout the campaign.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, yeah, do that. So I kicked some
like your Gemini, basically.
Gemini. Oh yeah, my Gemini. Yeah, man, that is exactly what I wanted to do. In fact, Gemini was specifically the one I had in mind. I can't even tell you which scenes because it'll give too much spoilers. But yeah, man, it was like that's what I really wanted to go with and such. So I have introduced a villain that someone could take and could could reappear throughout someone's campaign with real motivation to give all kinds of grief to a PC team.
Nice.
So it was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see it in print. Very excited about it.
It's very, very cool.
Without invoking like the Atomic Master's wrath, I know that
Sure.
the Dark Master is Mr. Goodman, so I thought Mr. Wampler, I'd hit him with Atomic Master there. Without invoking that wrath, could you give us like your initial impressions, a little bit of what of MCC? Because some of us haven't had a chance to play in any of it, except for I've had a chance to run the free RPG Day adventure, and hear it being run by Michael Bollum at a table behind me while I was running something else. So I have not enjoyed it yet. So I'd love to hear more about it.
Okay, so this is what I can tell you about MCC without getting myself
Don't get in trouble. Yeah.
mutated overnight or something. All right, I'm sure like all of us, I was a huge Gamma World fan from way back, and I was really excited about that, but I was skeptical about how it was going to work. I was like, well, how are they going to do mutations and have that work on the scale of DCC things? How are they going to do pure strain humans and have them work on the scale of Dungeon Crawl Classics? I mean, the idea is that these should be infinitely crossoverable. You should be able to have a sorcerer in the wastelands, and if you can't have a sorcerer show up Mutant Crawl Classics, well, then it's not Thunder the Barbarian, and then what the heck are any of us doing?
You don't have a Princess Ariel, right?
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And the first time I sat and read the manuscript, I was like, oh, he did it like this. Oh, I mean, I saw half a dozen moments where I was like, high-fiving Jim Wampler in my mind as I was reading. Like, oh, he did it. It really, and you know what it is? It's like all of the DCC stuff. It's simple, it's elegant, it's expandable over time, and I think people are going to really enjoy it. And I think it's going to be the kind of thing like DCC in that you won't see people really house ruling the heck out of it like they do with some systems.
Right.
But you'll see a lot of it leaves room for a lot of really interesting rulings at the table. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be that kind of a game where people are going to, because it's got such a beautiful, just like DCC, it's got a beautiful fluid, sort of like, through line to how the rules work and how you can, challenges and tests and combat all work. I think it's going to be really, really, really fun.
So you could have something like a Mutant Gong Farmer's Almanac come out then, where people are throwing in their house rules and their own patrons and whatnot.
Yes, you absolutely could. And I fully expect that. I think that, this is my prediction, I think that Mutant Crawl Classics is going to, I think that zines are going to spring up around Mutant Crawl Classics just like they have around DCC. And I think homebrew content, 16 months from now, you're going to see a good chunk of homebrew content out there. You can't help it. As I was writing it, I actually, I can't even ruin it. But I've been bugging Jim to let me write this one specific thing. I'm like, hey, what about blah, blah, blah? Can I do blah, blah, blah? And he is so sick of blah, blah, blah at this point that I can't believe he even still speaking to me. But there's a thing I want to do, like my version of homebrew content that I might, in order to introduce it, I might actually write an adventure where that's a big part of it. So I have an excuse to put it into an adventure and then put that invention to circulation. But
it's your back door, right?
Yeah, that's I'm always looking for one, and I think that I think it's going to be a good opportunity to see that kind of fun stuff pop up. Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. I think people are really going to love it. I can't imagine if you're a DCC fan and you have played Gamma World, I can't imagine that you would not make up your first character and not squeal with delight when you see all of the fun possibilities that are out there.
Well, I'll tell you that Kickstarter took off like
really
nobody's
did.
business. I mean, I was an early adopter on that because I'm a huge old Gamma World fan and DCC fan.
Oh yeah. I'm a huge Jim Ward fan, And hey, shout out to Jim Ward. He's in the hospital right now, so let's all send love.
Get better.
Yeah.
Oh, again. Shoot. Yeah, get better, man.
Yeah, send love his way, and let's send him, if you, you know what I'm going to do? Hold on a minute. I'm going to pull this up. If there are Jim Ward fans out there, if anyone wants to send him a card, can I put the address to send him a card on here?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I got to pull it up here in my...
Nice. Yeah, he's not that far from me.
Yeah, he's such a good dude, and one of my all-time favorites. And I'm gonna have, you know what? Maybe if you have comments, maybe we can put up in the comments afterwards because
Sure, in the show notes.
Yeah,
We can put it in the show notes.
let's do that.
Yep, for sure.
But yeah,
for sure.
really, he'd really appreciate it. He's gonna be in there for a couple of days. But anyway, loved Jim Ward, loved Gamma World from back in the day. Although I'll tell if I can tell a Gamma World story.
Of course.
Yeah, so Gamma World broke up my old gaming group.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I rolled up a Gamma World character who was so savagely...
Wait. Don't tell me. What was Life Leech involved?
No, way better.
Way better. Okay.
Yeah. He had 4 specific mutations that my little mutant had that made him completely off the charts. These were taller with the maximum result, heightened strength,
nice,
telekinetic arm, and photosynthetic skin. And these 4 things together made me an unstoppable giant with no need for food, roaming the wasteland. And just, I was something like 30 meters tall, or I was the maximum height you could be with the taller.
You're a monster.
Yeah, mutation. So I actually drew a picture of him, and in the picture, in my mind, it was a masterpiece. And my 11 or 12-year-old self, I'm sure it was just complete dreck. But he used a VW microbus as a bag. I pictured him stringing cables through the front and back window and just wearing it around on his hip. You know what I mean? He was that big and that intense and such. So I got blocked from using that character. They're like, "Oh, you can't use him." And I'm like, "Look, I know I can't go inside most dungeons, so I'll be like the ride. Everybody will climb up on me, and I'll walk across the wasteland. I'll take us to the dungeons." And no, I got shot down. And then I found out later on that, without getting into all of the game politics, that our GM kept that character, started seeing another group on the side, and was playing my mutant.
Gosh.
No.
Yeah, I was so mad.
No.
I was so mad. I was like, how can you do this? You know what I mean? It was like,
Oh, God, that sounds horrible.
I played a lot of, once we discovered Gamma World, from the time we did, that became, I won't say our number 1 role-playing game, because we always had a D&D game going, but it was certainly our number 2 game at that point. And my friend Philip Neer, who is a fantastic dungeon master and a great guy from way, way back, Philip Neer created this really complicated dungeon. It was Gamma World, and it was all based on Escape from New York, the old movie with
nice.
so it was the crazies in the sewers and the
Snake Plissken,
Plissken and all that stuff. And we were actually just starting to play that when I found out that we were moving, and we left New York and moved to Texas. So it was that's one of the great unfinished campaigns of my life was Philip Neer's. I think he called it the City of Doom or something like that. And he had typed it up all neatly. It looked good. It was I wanted to play so bad. But there you go.
This is reminding me of a conversation we had a ways back, Brendan.
Oh, yeah?
It might have been back in 2015. Where we talked about, and James, you might have, I don't know if they did this in your day or not, but when we were kids,
my day,
in your day. So I was a Boy Scout,
yes.
right? And we used to go and bring our books to scout camp. And we would be up at night playing D&D, right, in the tents, which our scoutmasters just went crazy with us. And so Brendan and I were talking, I don't know if you remember the conversation or not, but we were talking about, because I live about a 40-minute walk from where Gamehole Con is. One of these years, if it's warm enough in November, I'm going to set up the tent in my yard. And we're going to go out at night with flashlights and books and game in the tent at night.
I think that will be so fun. Man, sign me the heck up, man. But we had to play MCC now. You know what I'm saying? We have to.
Yeah, definitely. We just got to wait for the weather to get warmer, but, it's Wisconsin.
You guys can Skype me into that. I played in a tent once. I love how it's such a nostalgic beauty. Maybe I'm closer to the age, because I remember it being miserable, hot. I had an allergy attack. I was trying to play we were trying to work with the battle system rules, which doesn't really work real well on a floor of a tent, but we were trying it anyway for old second edition, and it was not a good memory for me. So I'll Skype in on that.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, we'll try to make it up for you, man.
Maybe with MCC it'll be different. I don't know.
Well, you won't need a map. MCC you can do a theater of the mind. Although I guess the Apocalypse Arc actually got a pretty complicated map as it all takes place inside of a rolling 10-story dungeon coming through the forest.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so, so it might be helpful with that one. But yeah, I think it was just that you have allergies and you were trying to play a game with a really complicated map system. Our tent game is going to be so great, and we're going to have. I'm telling you, but we need a big tent because I'm a galoot these days and can't. Like we had little. I remember Boy Scouts being like tiny little tents. We're going to proper grown size tent, and
Yep.
And it's going to have. If we're really going to do it 80s style, Reese's Pieces and maybe Tab Cola. They haven't made that anymore?
Well, and Tab. I think I should probably hire a neighbor, like an older neighbor, to come and yell at us that we should be going to sleep too.
Oh, good call.
Just for the full effect.
Yeah.
Go on Craigslist. Need old neighbor actor to play old neighbor for groups RPG campaign in a tent.
Prefer retired scoutmasters.
Watch Gary Busey show up.
You know what? That'd be pretty epic if Gary Busey showed up at your RPG game.
Oh boy. Well, anyway, sorry to interrupt, but I had to reestablish that
not at
one.
all, man. That's awesome.
So we did have some questions from listeners. Do you mind if we pop into some of those?
I'm ready.
So we have a bunch of fan questions here for you, Brendan, and it looks like a lot of the fan questions are about X-Crawl.
Cool.
And so maybe you can talk a bit about X-Crawl. I just jumped in and picked up Dungeon Battle Brooklyn last week prior to the recording here, and it's awesome, and it just gave me all these like cool like dystopian feels. So what is, for someone who doesn't know what it is, give us your introduction, because I'm sure you could do it much better justice than I could.
Well, thanks very much. Okay, so X-Crawl is an alternate modern fantasy universe where professional adventurers go through artificial dungeons live on pay-per-view, and X-Crawl is a death sport. It's a game within the game, and the players are, just like in times of old, they are wizards and warriors and elves and dwarves, except now they compete for sponsorships and they for golden prizes. The dungeons are artificial, but the challenges are real. So they go up against, monsters and dragons. They have to deal with traps and hazards and puzzles. But they've all been put there by the DJ, who is the dungeon judge, who tend to be like celebrities who put these contests together. And they go, you have to go and, deal with both all of the normal aspects of being a dungeon crawler and have to navigate yourself through the tricky world of fame, fortune, and crossing over into TV commercials and possibly even stage and screen. So the fame is a really big deal in X-Crawl, and there's a fame stat that you have to, you're always trying to, like, the more famous you are, the more money you make, so fame's super important. But it's, and you can also get killed at it. You can also die from just showing up and, meeting the wrong monster with the wrong weapon in your hand. So it's been publishing it since 2002. It was my home campaign for a few years before that, and it's probably what I'm best known for.
I got a real, what if Tolkien and Robert E. Howard decided to write their own version of the Running Man feel from it?
Sure.
Oh,
yes. X-Crawl, I think, wears its influences proudly. They're just kind of strange and disparate. So it's definitely Dungeons and Dragons. It's definitely gladiator movies. It's definitely professional wrestling. It's definitely modern celebrity culture. It's American gladiators. It's
there we go. That's the American Gladiators. Right there.
Yeah, that was huge.
Gosh, it's a great show.
I'll tell you what. The first time I tuned into it, I saw the preview for American Gladiators, and I was like, "Yes, Lord, yes, my show has arrived."
We're in the 90s now, so I'm really excited.
And I'm sitting there watching, and I'm like, "This is supposed to be gladiators." I'm like, they don't even have one sword and shield fight. I was picturing. I didn't figure it was going to be lethal, but I thought, okay, they'll have padded weapons and, tridents and nets, and I thought, it'll be. And I remember walking away being like, man, so close, guys, so close. That could have been awesome. And
too much padding and too few injuries.
Yeah, and just like the like they had that assault trial there. Remember that? Like you'd have
loved it when they had to shoot the stuff and hit the target. I was great.
Yeah. But that should have been hectic. That should have been 50 guys versus 50 guys. You know what I mean? I thought, it's so close. And it was one of the things I had in my head when I was putting together X-Crawl, was that kind of a thing. You know what I'm saying? That
I see that scene when you open, and I don't want to get too much about the adventure for someone who's going to run it or play in it, but like that opening scene, like the opening area in Dungeon Battle Brooklyn, where it's like you're having to do several like obstacles and like the physical challenges, whatever, and you're going through that.
Yeah, that's definitely that American Gladiator influence. Yeah, that one is like, I would say that Dungeon Battle Brooklyn is a first level crawl, so that one is more like the old American Gladiators TV show. And as your characters go up to be higher level, you're looking more like the old Gladiator, like the Gladiator movie with Russell Crowe, where you're actually here come the chariots and the guys with big swords and. It stops being cute and starts being like, hey, we better defend ourselves or we're all gonna die.
Nice.
So I had a whole lot of fun. Dungeon Battle Brooklyn is very special to me. I had a lot of fun writing that one. I guess all the stuff I write is full of in-jokes and things about like my friends and whatnot, but that one especially.
Well, we have several questions here about X-Crawl, so let's jump into a couple of these here. So here's a very serious one. John Dahlstrom asks, X-Crawl prognostications, will Emperor Ronald I be deposed by Donald I?
Never.
So I'm guessing Ronald I is like an immortal version of Reagan. Is that what this is?
Well, see, here's the thing about Ronald I. Yeah, Ronald I was the former Archduke of California, and he is the creator of X-Crawl. And the thing about Ronald I is that for years and years now, he has been kept alive basically by magic. Every morning, they wake him up, they hit him with about 25 spells, cover him in rings and amulets and special magic gewgaws, and then he is on the job. So he's definitely lived longer than most men, but he's got a real vision for America. He created X-Crawl basically to distract the citizens of America, who are basically, tax-paying serfs with no real rights, from trying to revolt and trying to foster some kind of democracy on themselves. So he's given them death sports. He's given them blood, bread, and circuses, and they love him for it, just like you'd expect. Now, will Donald I ever take over? I'm going to say no. I don't think that, we're talking about the difference between like faux imperialism and real imperialism,
Alt imperialism?
Yeah, I don't think so. Although I will say that the emperor can't live forever, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, John. Ooh. What's up?
All right, so to the next question here. I got a couple of questions about this. So David McKenzie says, Brendan LaSalle's story, best possible combination in the 2015 Goodman Games Gen Con guide is fantastic. And I have it on good authority that he has more X-Crawl fiction lying around. Any chance we'll see it? If it's crowdfunded, I'd be the first contributor.
Thank you so much. That's really cool. And thanks for that question. Yeah, I've got rather a lot of X-Crawl fiction lying around, and a few other folks have written a few pieces as well, and I would love to do something with it at some point. Best possible combination is, I write a lot of fiction, and in some ways, that's my, best possible combination. You guys know the song American Pie?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Best possible combination is the American Pie of X-Crawl, where it's just thick with symbols and like it's really both the story of a crawl team who lose a member and have to find a new member in order to go on at the last minute for this dungeon, and at the same time it's the story of X-Crawl all done in symbols and so yeah, that's I don't know. I'm very, very fond of that.
So it's like a mythology, really.
Yeah, it is. But again, it's like how you'd have to know who, like, think about American Pie. You know what I mean? If you don't know who the jester is or whatever, you'd be like, what the heck? So it's kind of like that, where it's all symbols and very personal to me. But there's a lot more X-Crawl fiction out there, and I'm working on more all the time. And since we're going to talk about X-Crawl, actually my writing partner and I are working on an X-Crawl movie script right now. Paul Suda of Hollywood. We actually are going to, this summer, I believe this July, we are going to crowdfund a sizzle reel, essentially like a fake trailer to help us sell an X-Crawl movie. So you like fiction? You like stories about X-Crawl? I got one coming for you, my friends, so get ready for that action.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah, you know what? If enough people bother Joseph Goodman and tell him they want to see an X-Crawl fiction thing, maybe it'll happen before then. But if not, it'll certainly happen at some point. So thank you very much. And if we do crowdfund it, maybe I'll come back on your podcast and I'll mention it.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So, another question that we have coming from Tara Frank: will we see open playtest rules before X-Crawl Apocalypse's release?
I think so. It'll be up to Joseph. When I have a complete set, I will say this recently. It's been a slow burn working on it, you know. I've been running X-Crawl with the DCC rules now for about 6 months at conventions, really since last Gen Con. And the more I do it, the more I see things that I have to do, you know, things that have to get changed and changes to the classes and such. So I have to free up a chunk of schedule. So I don't know. I was really, I probably could push through and do a version of and get it out in time for Gen Con this year, but I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I love X-Crawl. It's my baby, and I want the DCC version of it. I want to use the DCC rules to make the very best version of X-Crawl that's ever been out there. And that's going to take to get it just right is going to take a lot of playtesting and a lot of doing. So right now, I would project, like, my happy goal would be Gen Con 2018. I've got physical copies to hand out, and I run a big comeback tournament for Gen Con. You know, do it then. As far as an open playtest, I don't know. Seriously, if when it comes to that aspect of things, like when to release things and all, I am a bear of very little brain. I defer to Joseph on everything like that we do. Like, I will ask him, and he will tell me what we're going to do, and that's, I got no answer other than that, though.
That's why he's the Dark Master.
That is why he is a Dark Master, and I am just a guy that I carry his. I can't even. Boy, I just choked back on a joke that would have got me kicked off y'all's podcast. I am just happy that he keeps me around. So.
So there's another question from Tara. What tips do you have for using Pathfinder X-Crawl for GMs more familiar with DCC RPG and OSR games?
Ooh, wow! Selling Pathfinder to DCC and OSRIC fans. Well. I would say that the best way to do, make sure you're players. You want to get there with a bunch of people who are really there to have fun and can just say, you know what, maybe this isn't the system we would choose, but I know, but maybe it's a system that we could have a lot of fun with. Pathfinder is like every other role-playing game. It is not for every mood. But I love Pathfinder. I've had a lot of good times with Pathfinder, and I ran a lot of X-Crawl Pathfinder, and the process of getting from the original rules, where I originally wrote X-Crawl for the 3.0 rules, and the process of getting it to the final book that I turned in to Joseph, and said this is maximum X-Crawl. This is the Pathfinder rule set. That was a really important journey for me as a writer and as a game designer and as a fan of role-playing games. So I'll never, I realize that for most of our, I can just imagine right now, there are all of the Glowburn fans are like all giving the finger to their players right now, like, Pathfinder, you suck. But if you were going to do it, I would say play some regular, play a regular low-level adventure with Pathfinder rules and get used to what it's like, get used to how the combat goes. There's a certain rigidity to it, and but it can also be really, beautiful. I mean, I don't get people who talk bad about Pathfinder, but also like card games and chess and board games. It's a role-playing game with aspects of those games wrapped up into it, just like 3.5 is, just like every game is. It just takes it to an extreme that most people, that a lot of DCC fans aren't used to.
Well, Brendan, just like the planet Jupiter sort of protects the inner planets from asteroids, me being a 4th edition D&D fan, I think I protect you from any of the Pathfinder haters, because I get way more hit for that.
There you go, man. Yeah. That's fair. But, yeah, man, it's 4th edition too, I mean...
Play what you like,
Play what you like.
I don't play it anymore, but I had a great time doing it.
I will play what's fun.
I will say this: a good group with a good GM, it doesn't matter. Whatever game they play is going to be good. And a bad group with a bad GM, I don't care if You know what I'm saying? I don't care if Gary comes back from the dead and writes you a new game for that evening. You will not have fun at it if you're with the wrong people. You know what I'm saying? And
That is such truth.
Yeah,
Really.
true. It's very true.
System certainly is important. System informs story 10 times out of 10. So the way your rules are set up are going to, ultimately determine a lot of things about your story, but not your attitude, not your enthusiasm, not your theatricality, for lack of a better word. You know what I'm saying? Like, ultimately it's a role-playing game. Get out there and play roles. And I tell people, people all the time come to convention play, people do not need to know the rules. They just all they have to do is tell you what they want to do and role play their character, and you can tell them what dice to roll and when, and they'll be fine.
Yeah, that's kind of the referee's responsibility, right?
Yeah. Pathfinder, there's just a lot more dice rolls, and a lot more things you got to add and subtract to, but it's very doable. And I think that more is made of the difference between Pathfinder and other role-playing games, and maybe is fully warranted. That having been said, I'm really excited about moving to, now that I've been playing the DCC version of X-Crawl, even as it is now, it goes so quickly, and the encounters go so fast, and the way combat works, the kinds of things you can do with combat in it are so much fun to me that I'm really excited about moving to the new rule set.
All right, so we have a really serious question for you here. Okay, so
Okay.
I need you to emotionally prepare yourself for this one. So
Cleansing breaths, y'all. Cleansing breaths. I'm
cleanse
ready.
it. Mark Plord asks, dice cup, dice tray, or free rolling on the table?
Dice cup. What are you playing, Yahtzee over there, Mark? Nothing but love, man. But yeah, man, free rolling on the table unless you're actually playing in a car or a boat, or I'll give you a tent. You know what I mean? If you're in a vehicle, then yeah, dice tray. If you're, doing that kind of a thing. But I mean, dice cup? I mean...
Well, I love their answer so much because Mr. Plord here is one of my players.
Is that right?
He is an avid dice cup user. So, sorry, Mark, sick burn.
Is he like, and then I go for the ones, and then I go for the twos. Come on, it's Yahtzee. You got to gamble,
Look, I've said I have made comment that I've had to change how I roll. My rolling now with DCC dice is a bit more like how Will Wheaton rolls on tabletop, where he has to slam his hands down and then look, because D24s like to just do their own thing. A D24,
they just keep going.
Yeah, they're like the cats of the. If you're a dog or cat fan, your D24 is your cat, whereas your D4 is your dog. You can step on it and it hurts you. The D24 just goes off on its own. Maybe it'll roll a 24, maybe it'll roll a 1. It'll tell you in about 20 minutes. So I get that.
I've got to share a quick story here, and Brendan might remember this. This was at Game Hall Con when we were playing Neon Knights, and I had just bought my DCC dice, brand spanking new. And I can't remember the player's name. He's playing a wizard, and we had this. I hope I'm not going to spoil anything, but we had an encounter with a big bad guy on the top of this tower. And the guy who's playing the wizard cast Enlarge. Now, of course, we're at a convention, so he's burning all kinds of luck and cutting off limbs.
Burn it all, yeah.
Right, yeah. He's burning it all, and he's like, and Brendan, you were looking things up, and you're like, okay, we need a D30 roll, and everybody's looking for a D30. So I brought out my D30, never been rolled before, ever, and I handed it to the guy. I said, there you go ahead and see what it does for you. He rolls it, and I'm watching because they roll forever, and 30.
Yep.
It comes up 30. I remember you had to stop and look it up.
I think it was Bart.
Yeah, you had to look it up. Yeah, that's right. It was Bart.
Yeah.
You had to look it up, and you started laughing about the result.
Yeah.
And you read it from the paragraph, and it was I can't remember. He got like 100 hit points, and he grew.
He was 100
feet tall.
Yeah, man.
Right. Right. So basically, he just reaches out and grabs the bad guy and squishes him.
Yeah. It was such a beautiful, beautiful gaming moment. You know what I mean?
Oh, it was perfect. And then there's this other guy at the table who had never, I don't think he'd ever gamed before at all. The young guy, the teenager.
Yeah.
You remember that guy? So he's playing an elf, and he says, okay, well, what the heck? I'm going to cast Levitate, right?
Yep.
And so he maxes everything out. I think he rolled close to max.
Yeah.
And then he was able to levitate this entire castle.
Yep. And
over
then-
the sands.
And then we just flew it around the planet. It was so fun.
Yeah. It was awesome.
That was a great game. You know, Bart
that was
Miller
so
is one
fun.
of my favorite people to play with. And that was, to me, the crowning achievement, where it was just like, suddenly Bart's 100 foot tall, and then squishes my guy, and then your other man casts, I don't remember why he cast and levitate, but suddenly, he's levitating the entire tower around the world and such. And just, that's such a wonderful, weird fantasy thing to have happen in a game. You know what I mean?
It was great. It was one of the best endings I have ever had to any adventure. And here's my little backstabbing thief, just kind of sitting around watching all this happen like, wow, this is incredible. Anyway, that was free rolling dice on the table there that caused all that ruckus.
Oh yeah. I'll say for DCC, I think that spellcasters who can burn a lot of luck and burn a lot of spell burn can dominate a convention game. I think that over time, I think that it balances out if you're playing a home campaign. But that day things were extraordinary, and boy, was that not fun.
Oh, that was a blast. That seriously, that was, I will never forget that. Never forget. Well, I think I actually took a photo of that die somewhere where it had rolled on the 30. Just let it lay there and took a picture of it. So there's a, excuse me, one last question for you. And this comes from Reed Sanfilippo.
Oh, nice.
And it's a pretty good question.
What's up, Reed?
It says, does he ever sleep at conventions?
You see, here's the thing. I do sleep, and I eat, and I game. I just don't do anything else, And I feel bad sometimes. Like usually every con, I try to have one night where I go out for a beer with people and such. But I just don't. Mm-hmm. I just I feel like if I go to a convention, I am there to play dice and play games and run my games, and everything else is a support system for that when I'm at a convention. So. I'm in bed early. I get up early, but I'll run. Given my druthers, 3 games, like especially at GaryCon, I want 3 games a day for like at least, what I mean? Like to me that's extraordinary, and like it can be fun to have a night off and do whatever, but I always feel like, oh man, why aren't we rolling dice right now? I love gaming, and I love doing it. I love being up there in front of people. I love running games for people, and it just completely lights me up. And I love that feeling of like coming away exhausted. Of I get home from whatever convention, and I'm like on the couch for a whole day, just like
recovery. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, just,
yep.
Just like, keep my head down lower than my knees so that my blood can start settling out like I want it to do. But, I do sleep and eat and game, and I just don't do very much anything else at any given convention.
You're a machine. You're a machine. And I'm glad for it.
Thank you.
Hey, we didn't write this one down, but I'm going to ask this because of just what you just said here. So for someone who's never been to GaryCon, what makes it different? You said you'd run 3 games back to back. You'd play all day.
Sure.
This is my first GaryCon in 2 weeks. I've never been to GaryCon, and my wife and I are coming to this, so we're really geeked out for it. But we've never been. The closest we've come is I watched the Dwarvenaut about Stefan Picorni 3 times just to prepare myself for what it's like there. But
sure.
So give me the spiel. What am I walking into here?
Okay, GaryCon is the most old school of all the conventions. Okay, it's where you're most likely to see all the champions, the ones who brought us the games that we all enjoy so much. There is definitely a preference for old school gaming there. You'll see everything, but people tend to play. You see old school Renaissance games, and you see that kind of old school style of play. I will never forget my first ever GaryCon, setting up there to play X-Crawl, looking over at the table next to me, and these folks have got a hot and heavy game of Gangbusters going on. Do y'all remember TSR's Gangbusters?
Oh yeah.
Oh, dog.
No.
Well, Jim, back when we were a wandering tribe in the old days.
The kid doesn't remember.
Gangbusters was Prohibition era gangster role playing. You know what I mean? So
what?
Yeah, Maltese Falcon.
Oh yeah.
Al Capone.
Yep.
I actually have played and really enjoyed it. Because
it's distilleries and Tommy guns.
And yeah, but like just seeing that kind of action going on was like amazing, you know. So I would say, GaryCon, I would say is a chance for you to go back and play a lot of those games from back when you were,
a fetus.
Yeah, back before.
Yeah,
when you were just
or before.
just an idea. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they were. It's the best. Like people really go with that kind of like mentality of playing a lot of old school games. So like sometimes at Gen Con, I find myself wandering around and looking at all the new stuff and saying, okay, hey man, let's get innovative. Let's, I don't get a chance to play very much, but I'm always interested in hearing the stories and seeing what new things are out, what people are playing, and hearing all the new releases and such. Opposite of GaryCon. GaryCon, at least from what I've seen, it's getting back to that old school thing, which is why Dungeon Crawl Classics and Goodman Games in general it just does so well there. It really fits in very well with that old school vibe of playing. So
it's not just the games that are played there too. You kind of get steeped in the history.
Oh, sure.
I remember for example, somewhere, usually up on the second floor, you'll find a chair there that they call Gary's chair.
Yeah.
And it's got Gary Gygax's Hawaiian shirt draped over the back of it because that's what he wore when he was gaming. And it's got, I think it's still his DM screen, right?
Yep. It's got a whole. I got a picture of it someplace.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. Then it's got a little picture of him, and I can't. There might be some dice on there or something.
Yeah.
So then there's that, and then last year at least, they had a gallery of some of the original first edition art, like the original first edition Dungeon Master's Guide with the Ifrit on the front. The original painting was sitting there. Just on a table, just sitting there, and then there was like an original Empires of the Petal Throne book.
Wow.
And the thing is, all this stuff's just sitting there. Nobody's guarding it, nobody's watching it, and nobody took anything.
There's a real reverence, Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's this respect for the past that you don't see elsewhere.
Yeah. Lake Geneva is the origins of our entire hobby. Like whatever you feel about whatever system, whatever you feel about what people are playing now or whatever and such, this is where, if you care about the hobby, this is the home thing. In fact, Jim, one of the things that people do when you're there, get someone to take you out to, Gary's got like a little memorial plaque, everyone like sort of makes it over to, and, and you can go to, sometimes they have events at his house.
That's crazy.
Yeah, friends of mine have actually gone downstairs and played on the old table that they used to play on. They played OD&D down there.
Which was a door actually.
Yeah, it was a door. Yeah. It's
the door on sawhorses.
It's mind-boggling that you can get down there and do it, but it's it's the truth. You can you can go out there and really get in touch with the origins of our hobby. It's a beautiful thing, and I go there and like I don't know. I don't cut up as much. I mean, I have fun, but to me, like, it's, GaryCon is important,
Yes. I'll even go a step further. I get a little sappy.
Oh, sure.
I recall, I live north of Lake Geneva. I'm maybe an hour and a half north, maybe an hour, actually. And when I was teaching my kids how to game, I remember driving down there one time to pick up one of my sons from college. We were going down to Chicago. And so we're like, I had my middle son with me. And I was like, let's go through Lake Geneva on the way back. We stopped in Lake Geneva, and I knew where Gary's house was, and so I pulled up there. And of course, the cops are probably wondering, who's this guy? It's like 3 a.m. Who's this freak parked out front on the and I just pointed at my kids, and I was like, that's where it all began.
Yeah,
in that basement right there, and they were just mind blown.
Yeah,
it was almost like this religious moment, It's like, that's where it all began. Gary Gygax and his kids and friends in that basement playing on a door, playing this game.
And that's why I wanted to go. Besides everyone at Gen Con, because my GaryCon schedule looks like DCC Con is how it turns out. I've had this experience, and for me not to get sappy, when DCC has been like a warm hug is how I've felt it. I've opened that up and I was teleported back, maybe not to the 80s, but 91, 92 to my first red box and opening that up and feeling the art. And that's what DCC's been for me. And I'm, that the scene in the Dwarvenaut where Stefan's talking about like the house where it started, I was getting teary eyed. It's a
oh yeah,
being a history fan and this being the hobby I spend the most time with. Like this is a part of my life. The idea of going there for me is it's kind of like a religious experience. It's kind of like going somewhere. I don't know how I'm gonna feel when I'm there. I'm just so grateful that I can do it, and then I have the privilege to be able to put this trip together. My wife will be there with me, and
nice.
It's gonna be a cool time.
And I totally get that.
When I saw the Gary table the first time, I honestly got choked up.
Yeah.
I really did. I had to walk away. Because it was just such a it's been such a part of my life since I was a kid, and man, just the feeling of excitement flooded back, and just the memories, and it was really an emotional thing.
Sure.
I had to walk away. I had to go down to the lobby and take a seat for about 10 minutes before I could gather myself and face everybody else. So it can be that way, But yeah, I'm a sap, so
no, I totally get that, and like I have that same feeling while I'm there. Like it's really important for me to go out there and just represent and really like do like all that I can with that, and I mean I love our hobby, and that's where our hobby begins, and being there,
absolutely,
like being a part of that history from back when. It's I mean it's
it's like going to Mecca.
It is like going to Mecca, of that it's of that order for the gamer, for the serious gamer. It's definitely of that order. I think you gotta do Gen Con too, that's like what it is, but but you got to do at some point, like hitting Gary Con is really special, and I mean I hope
really is.
I don't know. I just hope it always retains that wonderful feeling that it has, because I've I don't know. I just had now I'm getting verklempt just sitting here talking about it, but it's true though. It really is.
Well, I appreciate the feedback about it. I'm really excited for it, and I hear so many DCC fans and talk about it and their experiences. And this summer is my 4th Gen Con trip, and
cool.
That's been interesting and cool, and sharing that with my family has been a really neat, it's been a great experience. But the fact this is something different, and as you guys said, there's a reverence to it. Yeah. I'm just excited to twist things around. Plus the fact I've been told it's a lot more personal, whereas Gen Con's a bit of a, I don't want to say it has an industrial feel, but I feel like I'm being moved from one section to another without a chance to stop and say, well, this is what that experience felt like. It's like you're just kind of moving and running. Yeah. And
Gen Con, which I love, Gen Con can be super intense. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's really big. So very often you have moments like, okay, I have to finish this game now. And then I have got 15 minutes to, run back, hit the bathroom, and get into this game over here in an entirely different part of the world. So very often okay, this is totally true. I have a friend of mine from the internet who is he's a guy from England who we've been trying to get together at GaryCon. Oh, I don't know, the last 10 years or so, I want to say, maybe not that long, but like we keep trying to, but we've never been able to get it together and meet up there because there is just so much going on. So if he happens to be listening, Martin Tideswell, maybe this is the year that we'll finally actually meet up and get a cup of coffee, at Gen Con. But it's so big and so intense, it's very hard to do anything. And like it's exhausting in a way that like I come out of GaryCon energized. I very often I guess this will be my 4th GaryCon coming up, and very often I come home and then I just write for like 3 days. I get so many ideas there, and I get so excited about doing stuff. And I come home from Gen Con and I lay on the couch and I watch Law and Order until I feel better about myself.
Dun,
until
dun.
I just, Law and Order is this magical healing thing, and I just let it wash over me, and just
No, that's not to say that you won't expend a lot of energy at GaryCon, because you will.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, because it's like depending on how your schedule. I mean, I'm dumb. I mean, my schedule, I've got 8 a.m. to midnight pretty much. I'm only going to be there the Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm not going to make it there Sunday, but still, and then after the midnight games, you're going to have the stupid o'clock games, which are actually some of the most fun.
Yeah, they are. Yes.
off the books, you know, craziness.
See that's how I do it. I don't usually do. I might Saturday night actually. There's been some talk, but usually like I run I think I'm running 7 like at total at Gary this year, and I think I'm like. I get done with my last one and it's, I'm in bed. You know what I mean? Like I try not to, I just got too much going on. Because it's one of those. I'll tell you the story of my first game ever at GaryCon. I'm laying in bed at my hotel room, like zonked. I drove and I was just exhausted. And Michael Curtis comes and wakes me up and he's like, dude, your first game is starting. And I'm like, no, my first game is noon. He goes, no, it's now. And I'm like, dude, I don't think so. And he's like, gets a little mad. He's like, dude, there are people sitting at your table. And I'm like, oh, so I had to like throw my crap on and run down there. And I'm like, could someone make coffee happen, please? So I got there and it was like people were all, I had a whole crew sitting there for my first, it was like, so that could have been inauspicious, but wound up being a good time. In fact, I remember it was my funnel was Hole in the Sky, and it was like, holy Christ, let's get mad and, get into it. But boy, it was a close call there. If Michael hadn't woke me up,
Oh boy, yeah, they would have been banging your door down.
Oh yeah, I would have gotten lynched. You know what I'm saying? Like the ghost of Dave Arneson would come and just give me an atomic wedgie as he dumped my books and carried me bodily out there, ectoplasmically out of the table. It would have been a bad minute or two. So I don't know.
Well, so we did, those were all of our listener questions, but James and I had some of our own questions.
I'm ready.
Could you mind if we dip into those for a second?
I'm here at your behest. Whatever you need me to talk about, I'm ready.
We're gonna have a 2-hour show.
Actually, Hector, also our sound engineer, he had a question, and my question actually riffs off of his. So he says, besides wondering what wrestler he channels while judging games.
Ooh, that's so good.
I hear he's very energetic. Yes, he is. He says, I'm curious to know his approach to writing modules for MCC versus DCC. And I wanted to take it a step further, Brennan.
Okay.
So you've written for DCC, MCC, X-Crawl, and Age of Cthulhu.
Yes.
Now, how are each of these different from the others?
Ooh, good call. Okay, first of all, though, let's talk about something important, okay? Hector, the wrestler that I try to channel when I'm at my best is Bam Bam Bigelow. Okay? Bam Bam Bigelow. Oh
Bam
my
Bam
God.
Bigelow,
I am giving the 2 y'all geek homework. Go and get on that YouTube.
Oh, I know who he is.
Yeah, man. Look, there are a lot of wrestlers out there, okay? There are always, these days, it's like the John Cena's always cut guys. Not me. When I'm out there, I am channeling a fat man that can do cartwheels, okay? That's what I'm talking about.
At 2 a.m. on like TNN or what was the network?
Yeah.
What was WGN? Was that what it was? Back in the first days of cable.
Bam Bam Bigelow, I want to say, started WCW, and then he moved on from there. But he he hit a lot of things. But if I'm channeling a wrestler out there, I'm channeling Bam Bam Bigelow. I aspire to be Jimmy Superfly Snuka, but I realize I'm not there. Bam Bam Bigelow. That'd be my wrestling patronus.
One day.
One day, if I transcend enough, I will one day get there. And then
I want to be
off
there.
the top ropes. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll be climbing on the back of my chair, rolling dice, and then jumping down. It's gonna be great, But okay, so different approaches to writing the different adventures. So the old 3.5 adventures are, in the old days, pre-DCC role-playing game, when I would write one of the DCC adventures, now remember, I wrote X-Crawl before any of this, you know what I'm saying? So I guess I should start with that then. X-Crawl is literally X-Crawl is 100% Brendan. So when I sit down and do an X-Crawl adventure, it's like, that's to me is the purest expression of my gaming style, where it's over the top, it's crazy, it's vicious, you know what I mean? And it also has that I hope that real ugly punch of irony, I love the idea that you bust into this room, and you and your buddies, and you have a death-defying fight. It goes to the wire. You're killing humanoids on camera, and like rich people are cheering for you and such. And you get it done, and like your friends are almost dead, but you survive. And then like here comes the announcer, and you guys have won. Everyone's won like a dinette set and a week's vacation in Cabo. I love, one of the things I really love about DCC is that it's all done for trinkets. You know what I mean? Like that's the ugly truth is that I think X-Crawl is really the darkest of all the fantasy worlds, because no one's even trying to be the good guy anymore. We've all surrendered. The bad guys have just created this nice warm blanket. Like, look, here's adventure, here's gold. Sure, you're eventually going to die from it, but you're a peasant. You're going to die anyway.
It's like the worst of exploitation.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, they've set up a system where you are going to sign up to kill and die on TV for some other people to watch. I mean, and it's fun to do at a role-playing game, but I want people to be able to take a step back and appreciate that that's also really ugly and not how the world should work. You know what I'm saying? It's the Dark Lord has conquered. He has laid down the law. He has set up the aristocracy, and now you all dance to his tune, willingly, cheerfully, and having fun while you're doing it. That's that's X-Crawl there. So for when I do an X-Crawl thing, it's all over the top. You know what I mean? It's you fast forward through. One of the reasons that I came up with X-Crawl, one of the main attractions of me to that kind of scenario is that it eliminates a lot of the ambiguity about the adventure. There's never a moment where, we're all sitting around in a tavern and this guy comes up and maybe he says, hey, there's this thing, you can go do it. Maybe there's gold, maybe there's not gold, and maybe you do it, maybe you don't. We spent so many hours playing variants on that scene when I was a kid. And X-Crawl, you are there to, that's your job. You're an adventurer. If you don't do it, boom, you better go back to the mall and see if you can get that job at Orange Julius you had in high school. That's what you got going for you at this point. You know what I mean? So I wanted to get right to it. You know what I mean? It's right about the action. It's right on the treasure. It's right on the mayhem. And on the ugliness and all of the topsy-turvy nature of the X-Crawl world. So the old DCCs, which I did later on, that was me trying to do more of like a solid dungeon crawl. They're all still weird. They're all still pretty Brendan-y. But I was also trying to get back to like the roots of the original adventures. I really thought a lot about what did I really like about the different modules that I played when I was a kid. Now, when you come to DCC role-playing game, the game takes over. And to me, the rules of that really dictate the kind of designing you do. The weird fantasy aspect is huge to me. And I think that I find myself like reading the rules and kind of like getting carried away by them and like letting the game, like where, whatever rule set I'm doing for X-Crawl is the champion, you know what I'm saying? But when I'm writing a DCC thing, the rules really are important, and what it would be like to be in a world with that kind of magic and those kind of warriors and those kind of gods that create those kind of clerics, I hope that that's reflected in my DCC designs. I hope that I hope it feels very DCC-ish, which is what I'm going for. Okay. So, and the same thing was true with my, Age of Cthulhu adventure, I wanted that to really feel like, I wanted to go back to Lovecraft, and I wanted it to feel like a Lovecraft story as much as possible and really kind of highlight all the things I like about, the game, and the literary genre, and even touch on some of the things that I hate about it, frankly, I mean, you're talking about one of the things about I have one adventure, it's Dream of Japan, and I hope that without spelling it out there, you go to this alien world where, the Lovecraft looked at the world and he saw white men and enemies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And,
he was racist.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it.
If I can give a shout out, I just read this amazing book recently. It was the Dream Quest of Velet Bow what's her name? I think it's Kids Johnson. I just finished it up when I was in Biloxi, which is it's a feminist retelling of the Dreamcast quest of Unknown Kadath in a way.
Unknown Kadath,
yeah.
yep.
That it actually takes place, but it's opposite. It's like it's about a character who's from the Dreaming who has to escape and like come to our world on a quest. And I can't recommend it enough. But I hope that Dreamer Japan does that a little bit. And it's like the Japanese they're like this, hostile to us. They're hostile to us for a reason, though. And I hope that we are as alien to them as they are us in there. I try to have that feeling of that alien feeling of like, oh, we don't belong here. But I hope to have it go both ways. And I try to make an adventure where like you could very easily go through all of Dreamer Japan without having any combat whatsoever. It can just be investigation and dealing with the supernatural beings there, that exist there and such. I really wanted to go along with that feel, and I also, that's the darkest adventure I've ever written. Because like, if you sit down to play that game, you've pretty much lost, just like you do in any real instance of cosmic horror. You know what I mean? Like, that's the point. Is that you might stave off the darkness for one more day, but by sacrifice and blood, but you're not going to win.
There's only two ways to end a Call of Cthulhu campaign, and that's dead or insane.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the reviewers, who was a very good review of Dreamer Japan, said this might be a rough one on people who have long-term beloved Call of Cthulhu characters because there really isn't much of a way out of this one. And I was like, long-term Call of Cthulhu beloved Cthulhu characters, like what? Like
who does that?
I never had one of those guys. Like all my guys just go berserk, either curl into a ball or decide that they're a pharaoh of Egypt and run naked across the street. That happened to me. But I get it. I mean, you want different things out of a role playing game than you want out of you want different things out of a role playing game than you do out of fiction. You know what I'm saying? You want it to feel different. You want a different kind of agency for the characters. It's very well for us to sit back and read the characters that are in any of the Lovecraft or August Derleth or Clark. You know what I mean? And see these people who are just like, whoa, what am I gonna do? But for a game, I mean, I get it. You want to have a little more than that, but I also didn't want it to be keeping the Borderlands. So I really tried to really capture that feel with it and such. And then
it's inherently nihilistic.
Yeah, it is, and it's in a nihilistic, and also like it's that moment of like, wow, there are things out there that will just crush us, and that's I don't know.
Right.
To me, there's a kind of beauty to playing in that kind of a game. You know what I mean? There's a real beauty to playing a character who realizes that and yet goes on anyway, and even more so, realizes that and still acts heroically, and thus still is a moral being in the face of that. The idea that you could that you can be faced with that kind of existential evil and still approach it as a moral being to the point of where you become a hero, that's a good story. I want to hear that story, It's
almost the flip side of a murder hobo in D&D,
Yeah.
Your murder hobos are out there, they're killing orcs and killing everything in sight, but in this one, you're the one being hunted.
Well seen, Forrest.
But you still have to be heroic,
Yeah. Man, beautifully put, man. Beautifully put. And then for MCC, I will say that I'm still spreading out and learning my MCC wings, though. And this is the first science fiction thing that I ever wrote. But I will say this, when it came time to make up monsters and whatnot, I was like, woo, the sky's the limit. I can go do anything in this dungeon. So, I've got some creatures in there, that are just like, what the hell? Let's do it. I was challenging myself to come up with more and more sci-fi style challenges, and I think that there are little bits in there that are going to make people go, what the heck? I really enjoyed working on that. And I'll say I'm still, like, we are all MCC babies. You know what I'm saying? I'm just feeling my way along with it and such. This was, like I said, this was an idea that this was Jim's idea, Jim's title, Jim's blurb, and Stephen Pogue's cover art. I took all of that and I wrote a dungeon to go with it, and I'm proud to have done that, and I really enjoyed working in that way. Now, what will it be like when I have the ability to do anything I want with MCC? I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like. I will say that I one morning just sat around at a coffee shop scribbled ideas for it, and had a couple that none of them that were 100% there, but a couple that were promising. Like, oh, that'd be an interesting thing to include. That'd be wild, But I mean, post-apocalyptic. There's a lot that can go on with post-apocalyptic, and I love the way patrons work in Mutant Crawl Classics, and I think that is, I really want to explore that in the next thing that I write. I really want there to be sort of a patrons in conflict with one another. I think they've got a lot more opportunity, even than in regular DCC. There's a lot more overlapping, like direct conflicts you can do with the even just the existing the MCC patrons as are now. Add a couple of your own, and the whole thing's gonna go buck wild. So right. I think if I do it again, I think I want to try to if I get the opportunity to write another MCC adventure, I almost feel like I would have to do something about these different patrons and being at war with another, people being pawns in that war, and I love the idea of their vastly different agendas clashing. I like to tell that story. So,
one quick question for you. So, this is a 5th level adventure that you've been working on. What kind of difficulties did you encounter? Because it's, the old common wisdom in DCC is 5th level equals 10th level in any other system.
That's totally fair.
So what did you find that was difficult about that?
Nothing. I made the whole dungeon 11th level, and everybody can go to hell. Wow, wow, wow! I'm blowing up fools. I'm cutting socks. No, seriously though. No, I mean it was. It's. I saw things happen in that playtest, and I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah. I mean, it was. The first playtest I ran of it, I only had one casualty, and they're tough boys. You know what I mean? And there's a lot they can do, but I got a lot of dungeon in there. So I think that if it's one of those things. If you're smart, if you play correctly, you'll definitely can do well in it. But if you make some bad moves, and if you just have a run of bad luck, it's like anything, I would say that the lethality for MCC, because of the particular circumstances of the apocalypse, is going to be even higher than its equivalent level for Dungeon Crawl Classics. I really believe that, and I think.
Do you think the artifacts have something to do with that?
It's artifacts. Oh yeah,
because you have now gear your gear is in DCC. Your fumble may cause a problem for a round, and your spell casting may jack you up, and you might have disapproval, but at least your gear doesn't kill you.
Right. It's not gonna blow up an entire city block if you do it wrong.
I think that the lethality of this dungeon is going to be of MCC in general is going to be extremely high, and I approached it like that. I thought to myself, okay, these are 5th level adventurers. I mean, what does it mean to survive to 5th level, as we experience 5th level in DCC, in this kind of harsh environment? These are some bad, bad boys. You know what I mean? They're tough. Yeah. They've got resources. They've got experience. They're not going to go, oh my gosh, what is that thing with an antenna and clicking at me and with metal parts? I mean, they've fought robots at this point. They've seen mutants. They know that there are things out there. They've encountered patrons and patron-driven enemies and allies. So I just tried to be like, okay, well then let's again ratchet this up to 11th level and just come up with something real crazy, Well,
and sometimes they were smart enough to run away.
I don't put that kind of faith in players ever.
It'll probably be different if you're playing the adventure as a one-shot or if you're playing up to 5th, because I found that the players, my group in DCC at least, my group of players who are now 2nd, getting close to 3rd level, are more apt to run away than players just handed 2nd or 3rd level characters, because that's how they got to 2nd and 3rd level to begin with, is they learn.
Exactly.
And anytime you play, call it convention play or one-shot play, there's always that, blaze of glory thing it's like, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's not like the guy that you watch crawl out of the, the 0 level ooze and finally take on a personality and become this
get a name.
Yeah, get a name, and actually you role play him. You know what I mean? You're like, oh my god. And it's like, oh, and then to watch him die, that hurts. I mean, it will be interesting to me to see what a long-running Mutant Crawl Classics campaign will look like, and it'll be interesting to me to see how that plays out. 'Cause I haven't played in a long-running MCC campaign, but I think that I tried to take that into consideration when I was designing this dungeon, and try to really take in consideration. And also here's the thing too: at 5th level, you also have to expect that at 5th level, they're going to be able to come away with some really big technology, and some really big, benefits. I mean, think about it's not, if you were running Dungeon Crawl Classics, it would not be out of the ordinary, or at least it would not be remarkably out of the ordinary for characters to go through a dungeon and come away with an artifact that really changed the balance of power for that campaign. I think
the BFG.
Yeah, exactly. So there are some BFGs lying around in the Apocalypse arc. Let's just put it that way.
Oh yeah. I'm going to assume that you set a certain difficulty level and then you play tested it and you had to tweak it up or down a little bit here and there.
Yes.
Did you find yourself having to tweak up or tweak down more?
That's a good question. I would say that there was one aspect. There's let's just call it the opening gambit. Okay. That I had to tweak up a little bit because it was not the kind of bad factor like I was hoping it was going to be. Turns out a lot of these mutants, like I said, just tough as nails. And pure strain humans, like I said, it really, it's funny now that I've seen it played. Like if I was gonna play a convention game, I would totally want to play a mutant or a plantient. But if I was going to play a long-term game, nothing but pure strain human for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know which one I would go with, but I would definitely play a PSH. And I think that for a long-term campaign, I think that would be the fun way to play. Like, like you and your spear against the world. Like, where's my laser pistol?
Interesting.
But there were aspects of the later parts of the dungeon that I had to turn down a little bit, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Where I was like, in my first playtest, one of the characters sacrificed their life to save the party from this one thing, which I'm totally for. But I also thought there had to be a way they could do it and not sacrifice their lives. So I had to kind of wind things down a little bit. So I'll say that after my initial playtest, it went. Some parts I raised up, some parts I dropped down, and then when I played it by Skype, yeah, man, that was when that felt really good. You know what I'm saying? And we had 2 casualties out the end just for some real bad dice rolls. So I say 2 out of 7 I think we played, or was it 6? Let's say 2 out of 6 players, died right there at the very end, but they really. Like one killed the other accidentally, you know what I mean? It was like whoopsie, So, and then it was just a matter of me stepping in my bad guys. So I hope now. But again, see, that's the thing. That's one of the wonderful things about DCC is that it's inherently unpredictable, and that makes for good storytelling. And it might not be the most fair of games sometimes because sometimes things happen. But as far as creating good stories, like stories that you later on want to sit around and share with your gaming buddies, I think it's unparalleled. And I think one of the reasons is the wizard who rolls a 30 and levitates the tower, and you know what I'm saying, and that kind of thing. I think that MCC is good.
Balance doesn't make for good storytelling. Honestly,
no. I mean, imagine a really balanced action movie.
Even the small tidbits, though, I think that's where the with DCC and I'm hoping with MCC, the small tidbits make things just more memorable. Just not to go back to my own table, but in our DCC game, we have a wizard. My friend Craig McCullough plays a wizard named Watson, and it's like, okay, he's a human named Watson. What's special to his wizard? Well, he rolled up when he used his magic missile how it manifested, and it said. Like eagle, a screeching eagle, or like a bird appears. So now all his spells are bird based. If he is levitate, an eagle comes over and picks his character up. If his magic missiles are screeching eagles, and it's kind of like the Colbert Report eagle. It's like they come in. When he casts magic missile, the entire group of players make that noise. Like they're so excited when Clay casts magic missile.
Isn't that nice?
And that just came from he randomly rolled, and he could have gotten like a laser beam or like a firebolt or something like that. But no, his magic missile is a bunch of eagles appear and attack the character. And it's just those little tiny tidbits in the game that happen randomly and are unexpected. But that's how life is. I mean, life is
Sure.
Unexpected. And I think that that's the magic behind the system. What I think, as you said earlier, Brendan, about this being like an elegant rule set, that's what makes it elegant, is that it gives you the creative room to come up with your own ideas, but then the game inserts itself into your creativity. The game tells you sometimes what way you're going to go.
Yeah, well seen and well put.
James, you had a few more questions, I believe.
Yeah, well, I'll hit you with one more here, and this will kind of cover, so the rest have kind of been asked here, but describe for us your perfect post-apocalypse. You know, we've talked about X-Crawl, and you've talked about the direction you would take your MCC, your next adventure. So draw just an image for our minds here and the listeners' minds of what your perfect post-apocalypse looks like.
In my mind, my perfect post-apocalypse would be so far in the future that they are putting together a society barely understanding that there was a society that went on before them. I like the idea that you wouldn't look at an artifact and go, oh, here's a weapon of the ancients, but rather that this is a magical thing of the gods they put out there for your thing, and its workings are mystical, and that you don't repair them, that you assuage the spirits by accepting whatever challenges that they give you to repair things and to make things work. I want to see whatever is left of extant humanity, call it. I want to see them both evolved and devolved at the same time. I want to see us having like societal structures having fallen away, but new structures coming up in their place. And I think that's to me that's a really interesting story, because that's the thing. We all, I think people tend to fantasize about post-apocalyptic worlds, if for no other reason that I think people crave a kind of simplicity that you just don't find in the modern world. There'd be a real simplicity to your existence, living, not just hand to mouth, but like spear to mouth. You know what I mean? When you had to go out every day and like kill or be killed in order to provide food for your family, Not a lot of midlife crises going on there, Not a lot of. I don't think you'd have a whole lot of instances of like, rampant ennui, or people just like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm so bored. You would not get bored very often in the world, in an apocalyptic world, and that's the fantasy of it. So I think you got to bring that part forward too. You got to like put forward that there would be no ordinary moments in the world of Mutant Crawl Classics. You know what I mean? Everything would be, doing it for the first time. Everything would have all these wild X factors. And I also love the idea that, given, one of the things that I think MCC would contribute to my vision of a perfect post-apocalyptic world would be a world where you and your dog sentient buddy and your plant sentient buddy and your pure strain human buddy could sit around and have a beer and your homemade sack that you made in the stomach of a mutated ostrich or whatever it is, and like, that you could, you would have these different like species that could then interrelate. That would be really interesting to me, I would say that I love the complexity of the world, and to me, it has never gotten weird enough in my life. It's gotten close a few times, but it's never gotten weird enough to really make me think, yeah, okay, now I've really seen all the things I need to see. But I think that given what you would have, in the kind of apocalyptic fantasy literature RPGs that we visualize, I think you could exist in a place of weird enough, and that would be very interesting.
That's awesome. I know it's off. It's not the same. It's off system a bit. Like the other game I play, about as much as DCC is Numenera. Have you ever played Numenera?
I own Numenera. I have yet to play.
Yeah, I've run. At least 150 sessions. Of different Cypher system games. At least half of those have been Numenera, and there's I've enjoyed the weird of it, and you kind of get a little bit of that feeling of being everything's so far in the future that the technology just blends into magic. And you take some role playing to achieve that with the right group. It's a great experience.
Yeah, I get that totally. Yeah, I'd love to try. Like I said, I'm fascinated by it, but it's one of the things. It would be. It's hard for me these days to pick up and learn a new system to play it. I'll get new books and I'll read through them and I'll highlight them. But it's one thing to give it a read and kind of get an idea how the game would go, but to learn it well enough to create characters and to run it, it just takes a level of time and effort that would be, you know what I mean? I have to have like a,
Of course. I pick up games all the time that I'm like, I for no reason whatsoever picked up the Dragon Age RPG around Christmas time. Like I was real big into playing Inquisition at the time. Like I want to own all this. I bought a whole bunch of it, and then I'm like, when do I have time to run this? I'm like running road crew events.
Yeah,
I got my Numenera game. I got a DCC game at my club. I have 3 campaigns already. What was I thinking last month? But the game goes on my shelf.
James, I was just curious, is Numenera your perfect post-apocalypse or not?
No, it's not. It's a very I wouldn't call Numenera post-apocalypse. I think it's more science fantasy. The world itself, it's really a medieval bolted on to an apocalypse. I think for me, my perfect post-apocalypse, Mutant Crawl Classics is designed to be further in the future, and so to a point where you kind of know that this is a toilet seat and not a necklace, but maybe you don't. I like apocalypses that there be people that existed before and existed after the apocalypse, you have some of that connection. So I'm a fan of the bomb. Probably why I was so interested in Dan Carlin's podcast. I've always been fascinated by what would happen if they were unleashed. So I think I want to go through it myself, but I wouldn't mind the alternate history, hopefully, of what it would be like for the before and after. And I think you mentioned The Road earlier, and in the movie, I've never read the book. In the movie, there's a scene where the character, the man, turns to his son and says, "You must think I'm, from a different world than you are," because the son has no concept of what the world prior to this had been. I like that. I like that idea of being, 30, 40, 50, 60 years after the event happens.
The first or second generation after.
Right. You're still dealing with, radiological issues, and I guess along the lines of Fallout and stuff like that. Although I also am a big fan of I guess would you call it trans apocalypse, to be there to play. I've always been fascinated to play a game that's occurring during the apocalypse. It's happening right now.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And how do you deal with that? Yeah.
Like a Terminator campaign or something like that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. We played my buddy's Aftermath campaign, and I was a soldier in this unit in Russia, and the first thing that happens is a nuclear bomb goes off, and we're all suddenly, running for our lives. Great kickoff, and at that point you're still thinking, wow, I can get, what can I scavenge? I go to the hardware store and get A, B, C, and D, because, when you say perfect apocalypse to me, I'm thinking as far as for a role-playing game setting, but my real perfect apocalypse, for me, personally, would be more like The Stand, where everybody dies really peacefully, and I can go and hang out in the library, and eat Spam and fruit off the trees.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I want to find a good library.
Yeah, and just hang out. You know what I mean? It'd be low stress. It'd be well, since I'm the only one alive, I can use all the gas I want and, ride my bike around town, not worried about getting hit by stuff. My main concern is whether I want to eat coyote for lunch or armadillo.
Back at you, Forrest, then. So your perfect post-apocalypse, are you running the library adventure? What are you running? Your perfect one.
Well, what I'm running right now for my MCC campaign is more along the lines of Fallout, post 80s nuclear destruction type thing.
Yeah.
And I love that. I mean, I was raised in the military during the Cold War.
Oh, wow.
And I lived at Ground Zero at Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha for 5 years. They actually came out with this movie called, what was the name? It wasn't The Day After.
By Dawn's Early Light?
No, that was later.
Oh, was it Miracle Mile?
No, it wasn't Miracle Mile.
I was terrible.
Oh, no. Dude, Miracle Mile ruined me for like a weekend, dude.
That was so depressing. I was like 9 years old when I saw that. My dad brought it home from West Coast Video. He was like, let's put this on. I'm like, this is so sad. Why did Anthony Edwards have to die?
Yeah. Oh, I cried. Oh, I cried and cried and cried.
It's a rough movie.
I think it was actually Ground Zero, I think was the name of it. Man, I can't remember now. But anyway, it was about what would happen if a nuclear bomb hit Omaha.
Ooh.
And I was living in Omaha at the time. And I was in junior high school. And so I lived about 2 blocks from the elementary school that I had just come out of, out of 6th grade into 7th grade. And they did some filming at my elementary school, right?
Oh, wow.
So this is 2 blocks from my house, right? So the special effects, it was the 80s, so they weren't all that great. But one of the scenes they had was they had the playground, which I had played at many times as a kid. And all these kids outside playing, and the nuclear bomb hits the air base, which is maybe, about 8 miles away from base housing where we were. Mm-hmm. And it shows these kids like climbing up on the monkey bars, on the swings, and they just melt.
Oh my God.
I mean, and the wind comes through and just blasts everything. And I'm watching this on my TV 2 blocks from where this was filmed, right? So you can imagine the freak out, right?
Oh my God.
So, sure.
Oh, it gets worse. Oh, it gets worse. So then we go on vacation to Kansas City. There's a big park there called Worlds of Fun, which is a big, theme park. Amusement park. So we go down there and we're in Kansas City in a hotel and we're watching the TV, and this TV movie comes on, and this one was called The Day After.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And it's about
I love The Day After.
Yeah, it's about what happens when a nuclear bomb hits, guess what? Kansas City, Missouri.
Yep.
Oh wow.
So I'm there watching this, right? I'm like looking at the cosmos like, why do you hate me? Why does everybody want to nuke me? Everywhere I go there's nuclear bombs dropping. So anyway, that gives you a little bit of the background of my mentality about the whole thing. But being raised in the military during the Cold War, I was of course fascinated by nuclear war. I mean, we did the drills. We did the duck under the desk and duck and cover.
Sure.
We did those drills for real. And I learned, you point your head toward the blast, and the reason for that is because you don't want to mess up the reproductive organs with any nuclear rays.
What?
That's why you always point your head. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So when you duck and cover, you point.
Because you got to repopulate the species afterwards.
Exactly. So we were trained. Bomb drops, you figure out where it is, and you point your head that direction and duck and cover.
Goodness gracious.
Oh yeah. Well, and we look at that now and it's just like, man, that's just morbid and freakish. But back then, for me, being a military kid, it's just a fact of life.
Sure. Goodness.
I was used to, I'd be walking around base and the sirens would go off and they would be doing these drills, right? And everyone, if a siren went off, they were doing a drill, you had to go hit the shelter. If it was they called it a black alert. If it was going to have a nuclear weapon, black alert went off. You went and you hit the shelter. You didn't know if it was real or not.
Jeez.
It could have been the real deal. I mean, I'm sure the guys on base knew, but they didn't tell us kids.
Yeah.
This explains why I am the way I am.
This is a lot really.
And so anyway, so for me, that whole idea of the immediate, like you said earlier, James, that immediate first generation following or even during the apocalypse is very much a part of what I was raised with the expectation. Now, I will say though that in terms of games, I do that. I like that. I run that. But I also am kind of enamored of the other side. You look at Jack Vance's stuff, mm-hmm. where it's been there was an apocalypse at some point, right? But it's so long ago that you've lost all track of even who these people were, what they looked like, mm-hmm. but you're still dealing with their artifacts. I can't remember the story. I think it might have been Ulandor, where there's a giant robot kind of thing that pops out at the end. Was that the story? Anyway, in the first Dying Earth book, one of the stories has basically this giant robot at the end. And I like that too. I also, I'm kind of fond of Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Book of the Long Sun. I really like the Book of the Long Sun. Frankly, I'd love to do a campaign there at some point. The Long Sun, if you haven't read the book, it's a space colony ship. But it's been out in space so long that everybody's forgotten where they left from. They don't know where they're going. They don't know why they're there. All they know is they're in this gigantic tube. And every once in a while, they stumble on this technology of the ancients. And some of it's still being in kind of common use, like the vehicles and whatnot. It's still rare enough that they're prized things. Like if you get a laser gun, wow, that's like an artifact. To me, that's kind of an interesting twist on the apocalypse, because nobody really got destroyed. And as a matter of fact, you're actually trying to save the race, but you're in this environment that is, simultaneously modern and ancient.
Sure, I get that.
And yeah, and that has a lot of appeal to me. And of course, with the Book of the Long Sun, that's the kind of thing where you can constrain it a little, kind of like Jim Ward did with Metamorphosis Alpha.
Yes.
You can constrain the geography of it. If you find your way outside of the ship, that's a big problem. You don't want to find your way out of the ship, or if you do, you want a spacesuit. So I kind of have all these conflicting emotions. I mean, there's not enough time in my life to run all the post-apocalyptic stuff I would love to do, but for now, it's more the more immediate, with kind of shades of the long-term, more Jack Vance, Gene Wolfe type technology as well.
In the world prior to us getting the Dying Earth DCC game, if you ever want to try Numenera, and you want to play DCC version, I have on my blog site somewhere, I have 100 occupations to run DCC Numenera. Oh, wow. It sort of fits Monty Cook. That was a big inspiration for him, the Gene Wolfe books for that.
Cool.
I'll have to take a look at that then. Yeah. I had the book at one point, and then I think I sold it because I actually, you know what I did? I actually sold that so I could get the money to buy the DCC rulebook.
Oh.
Well, I've decided you can DCC anything now. That's why I'm doing DCC Star Wars now. It's my favorite Star Wars.
No
system.
kidding.
Oh yeah, yep. I have two of those. Two of my GaryCon games I'm running are both DCC Star Wars.
Oh.
And one based on the Saturday Night Live undercover boss Kylo Ren episode. So like that's where my brain goes with games, is how bizarre. And the other one is Undead Gungans. So
oh wow, goodness gracious,
that's better than Undead Tweaky.
Bitty, 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 bitty.
Well, we've been going for a while now. Do you guys want to switch out to mutagenesis? Is that okay?
Sure,
I'm with it.
Mutagenesis.
Welcome to the Mutagenesis. This is where we take something from media or other game systems and take a stab at converting them for Mutant Crawl Classics role-playing game use. So, James, what do you have for your Mutagenesis this time around?
Well, I mean, I can create on the fly here something, since we had to discuss the day after. I mean, if you want to talk, we're talking metal here and hardcore for most of this episode. Right. Yeah. You don't get any more metal than Steve Gutenberg's character in the day after. I mean, because he's got the perfect, like, fluffy hair, but, like, in that one scene where everyone's getting just wasted by the bomb, I mean, the Goot can just take it and just casually walks into a building like, I'll see you guys later, I'm okay. Everyone's getting flashed and their shadows are behind them and they're just, like, getting nuked. Not the Goot. The Goot makes it through. So I would say if you want to play Steve Gutenberg circa the day after, 18 stamina, 18 personality. If you roll both of those when you're making your character on Purple Sorcerer, Steve Gutenberg.
He's like the perfect pure straight human.
He is. Oh yeah, I think if I play MCC one of these days, I'm gonna print that picture out, and that's my character. Manimal, Planscient, whatever. It's Gutenberg. What I actually have for Mutagenesis this month, is I have two entries here. When I was working on my Scattered Over Centaurus 7 adventure, I came up with a flamethrower stats and a pulse rifle stats to kind of give player characters the feel of Aliens gear.
Oh yeah.
And I've got some to add to this. I tossed out. I have the Blade Runner pistol, and I have the Lawgiver from Judge Dredd.
Yep.
And Blade Runner pistol is a D8 in damage, range 30, 60, 120, 5 points of ammo, or as I call them, chips, and I'll say why in a second. And the special is double damage, 2d8 versus robotic creatures.
Yay.
So if you want to shoot Tweaky, there you go.
I think it should do 3d8 versus Tweaky.
3d8 versus Tweaky. Okay? Now, Lawgiver could go so many different ways. Now, I just know it from the movies because I've never read the comic books. But what I have is I'm not a big comic guy.
Oh, they're great.
I'm not a comic guy. I don't know metal. I don't know about these role-playing games from 1979 because I was just being born. I'm sorry. For For the Lawgiver, I got a D10 in damage because, Lawgiver. Again, same range as the Blade Runner pistol, 30, 60, 120, 6 points of ammo or chips. And the special is the player can spend 2 chips instead of 1 to make a second attack versus another target. So with my pulse rifle and flamethrower, you have so many chips and you throw in there more of them, and that can up your damage die. And the way I'm using chips, I love using poker chips as gaming pieces. I get that from my old Savage Worlds days. And when I was running my adventure, I found, in playtesting, I found it was a great way to introduce ammo scarcity by making players have poker chips in their hands for their ammo.
Right.
So they have to toss their chips into a bucket to shoot their gun. First off, they like throwing stuff at me because I'm the judge. They want to throw crap at me. The second thing is they get to watch their ammo dwindle as they use their weapons, and they start to conserve. And it's hard to do that when you're asking someone just to cross off the arrows on their sheet, but you give them poker chips and they gotta throw them in.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I've got for my mutagenesis.
Interesting. You have to use that chip trick. That's a good idea.
It works great for ammo.
So for my mutagenesis, I'm a geek who reads Discover magazine. It's actually the only magazine that I physically subscribe to. So usually I'm caught by the articles, and that's actually given me a fair amount of fodder to kill off characters. To add into my campaign. This time I wasn't caught by an article. I was caught by an advertisement, and they had something. I wish I could remember the name of it. It was something. It was kind of akin to the old Rubik's Cube from the 80s. But the ad, of course, like all the ads in Discover magazine, is for old people because only old people actually subscribe to magazines anymore. And so it's telling them how great this puzzle is for your memory, right? Because you get to be Brendan's and my age, and you start losing your memory.
No, it's true.
This got me to. It's coming for you, James. Just brace yourself. This got me to.
I got a decade to go.
It got me to start thinking, spurring my memory, which led to today's mutagenesis, which I've called the Hofstadter Cube, and it's named after Douglas Hofstadter, who wrote this amazing Pulitzer Prize-winning book called Gödel, Escher, Bach, An Eternal Golden Braid.
Huh.
And it's a fantastic book. It's incredibly difficult, I will say. It's not for the faint of heart. And it's about a lot of different things, but really at its heart, it's about artificial intelligence and systems of logic. So here's how the Hofstadter Cube works. The Hofstadter Cube was used as a training device before the Great Disaster to sharpen the minds of promising young scientists and engineers. In essence, it's a puzzle directed by the internal AI that's resident in this cube, and it's used to train the minds of those who use it to be able to tackle complex mechanical operations. So in appearance, it's just a plain glowing green cube, about 5 inches on every edge, with no other distinguishable characteristics. But as you begin to manipulate it and handle it, it becomes apparent that the Hofstadter Cube is not as simple as it first appears. So in fact, it's actually incredibly complex, and that's the whole point of it. When a person picks up the cube, begins to manipulate it, the AI listens to the manipulator's actions and maps the person's brain waves, their little subtle micro-twitch muscular movements as they're trying to fuss with this cube. So as the person continues to manipulate the cube, it responds, it resists here and there, it allows you to move here and there, until the person's thought patterns are modified to recognize and better respond to mechanical complexity than it was before.
Oh, interesting.
So it works with the brain's plasticity for that individual. So the cube has a tech level of 3 and a complexity level of 12. So it is extremely complex. Now, as with any other artifact, you want to roll in the artifact check table with your modifiers and so on. So if the cube is well understood, and that's a direct quote from the artifact check table, well understood, the character is given a permanent +1 to all artifact checks of a mechanical nature going forward. If the cube is, quote, precisely understood, as indicated on the artifact check table, the character is given a permanent +2 to all their artifact checks going forward. A failure indicates what I call a stupor of thought that renders the manipulator a drooling idiot for 1d20 minutes and penalizes the character -2 on all artifact checks for the next 24 hours. So it's you either succeed and you're permanently smarter, or you fail and you're temporarily a lot dumber. The cube won't respond. If you fail, it won't respond for another 24 hours. And after that 24 hours, you can try to solve it again. Now, one of the things in the quick start rules is that you can train people to use artifacts once you know how to use them. That is not the case with the Hofstadter cube. It's not possible for one character to train another in the use of the Hofstadter cube because the internal AI will detect the brainwave patterns of the new user, and it'll intentionally resist those brainwave patterns, the ones that are similar to the old user, because the whole idea is to train an individual to be smarter. And so there's no cheating. So in this case, the person trying to train the new user actually makes things worse than if they just left the new user alone.
That's interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not a trainable object. It's intentionally not that way. There's a C cell powering the device, which gives it enough juice to train up one person, and the device won't accept a U cell. So there's no such thing as a universal Hofstadter cube that keeps going and going. So you get one person worth of training, and then you got to get another C cell and pop that into that thing to get it to work again. So that is my mutagenesis.
Nice.
For you to torment your players with.
Well, I have one, guys. If it's cool.
Okay.
Lay it on. It's a first draft.
Awesome.
Okay. And
okay.
Just something I thought of here. And it occurs to me that, you talked about like the best post-apocalyptic thing and such, but no one's talked about the worst.
Yeah.
I'm here for you. Ready? All right.
All right.
So without getting into too many details, I was stuck in Manhattan for about a week at one point where I wasn't able to go back home. And I was able to buy myself clothes and a toothbrush while I was there. It happened kind of suddenly, like, hey, you got to stay here. Like, oh, okay, on this job site. But I had nothing to read, and I don't do well without anything to read. So I kind of asked everybody on the crew of this thing I was working on, hey, if I really could use a couple of good books, And this one guy was like, oh, God, I'm reading the best thing right now, man. You're going to lose your mind. And he brought me the Doomsday Warrior series. Have you all ever heard of the Doomsday Warrior series?
I don't know if I have.
You're fine, because they're awful.
Oh, are these the ones with the guy with the sunglasses on the cover?
I don't, my covers were like, I remember a fist holding a gun up with a nuclear blast in the background.
That sounds probably about, yeah, I think I might know those.
That sounds amazing.
I mean, amazing, yes. That's a fine way of putting it. Because there's like 1,000 of them. There's so many of these books. I mean,
I do remember those.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, in it, like, it's like Russia launched a first nuclear strike on America, and now Americans are all surviving, like, Wolverine style at the edge of the world, and there are a lot of mutants. And
isn't he like an ex-CIA guy or something like that?
He is just the main character. He's just the Doomsday Warrior, man. They're all just like fringe people at this point. He is Ted the Rock Roxon.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
He gets bigger and tougher as the thing goes on. So at the beginning, he's like 6'2", 240 pounds of steel hard muscle, and then towards the end, he's like 6'6", 300, and he just continuously, as I recall, gets like bigger and tougher and scarier. And he's like, it's like him and a bunch of like racist stereotypes that all go around like fighting the Russians and and mutants in post-apocalyptic things, also while having weird mutant sex. It's not good, guys. It's not good.
It sounds great.
I mean, I double dog dare you. Find them. I guarantee you're still out there.
I'm looking right now. I just jumped on Google real quick to take a look. I'm like, I need to read these.
Yeah, it's either Stacy Ryder or Ryder Stacy.
It sounds great. Says the guy who loves
the guy loves Thunderdome.
Says the Dave Matthews fan.
Dave Matthews, Thunderdome, and 4th edition D&D. I'm golden right there.
And Undead Gungans. Don't forget the Undead Gungans.
That's pretty fun though. But it had one very cool aspect that kept my imagination when I was a kid. Their standard like close quarter firearms. They used, I think it was called the Liberator, I believe it was. Though they had a couple of guns with names, but I think it's the Liberator. It was like their main like up close and personal weapon, and it was an X-pattern shotgun. Okay, so it's a shotgun that instead of shooting a circular blast, like if you ever fired a shotgun at a target, it makes like a nice round thing like bees through. This one makes big X's and kind of like rips things apart that way and such. So it's a good anti-mutant kind of a weapon and such. So like the Liberator would be a 10-shot, like close range shotgun. So you're looking at like, I'm thinking like 15 feet, 30 feet, 45 feet on the outside. I'm thinking like 2x8, 2x7, 2x5, like damage goes down in range increments because the X pattern will make it shoot and all all directions. Like at Tech Level 2, I'd want to mess around with it again, and I'm not even sure. Like I said, there was the Liberator might have been their rifle, but they had the X pattern shotguns that they had there they came up all the time.
So you could shoot a 4-arm mutant in all 4 arms at once.
Bam! Exactly. You could
handy.
Yeah, it was. So it came up. Anytime you can rescue an aspect from a terrible thing like that and make it work, I'm for it. So if someone can rescue the good bits out of the Doomsday Warrior series, which, like I said, I was stuck with nothing to read. I read 4 of these things before somebody finally saved me by showing up with Jurassic Park, and I was like, oh, I'll read this. Thank you, Jesus. But
gotta find those diamonds still, though, right? find the diamonds in the coal mine.
Yeah, I'm for that. You know what I mean? So anyway,
that's great.
That's my first draft.
I love it.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Always, man.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, try it out. I mean, but do this if you're gonna read them. Every time it gives you his physical dimensions, which it's going to a lot of times, write them down and watch as they change throughout the series. That will be fun for you.
He gets buffer and buffer, huh?
He gets buffer and taller.
Oh, wow. I wonder if somebody would steal his character too, and play. Sorry.
I'd be so mad. He had 2 different color eyes. It's like his little nod towards being a mutant. And it always, he had a wife, but somehow he's always in order to save somebody's life or whatever, he'd have to have sex with other mutants he found out in the plains. Well, I've got no choice but to, save this village by impregnating this hot mutant chick. It was so bad, y'all.
Sounds terrible.
It was awful. So try them out.
Boy.
They're out there. It's bad.
Wow. Well, thanks, I think.
I'm here for you.
Well, we have some announcements. So GaryCon, so excited for this. March 23rd to 26th, we'll be having 10 sessions of Mutant Crawl Classics, 5 of Crawling Under a Broken Moon, 2 sessions of Star Wars DCC, and 2 sessions of Star Frontiers, and a session of Gamma World First Edition so far. Gen Con, I know it's early, but let's talk about it because August 17th to 20th, it looks like we're going to have at least 149 official DCC, MCC, Goodman Games events, which is just amazing. I think it's pretty crazy.
Biggity bam.
By the time this podcast airs, Reed Sanfilippo's American Survival Guide Kickstarter should be live, and go support it. Reed's got a bunch of extras planned for it, including an adventure written by Judge Forrest. Wow, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
As to how to contact us, you can get us on Twitter at Glowburn. Email is glowburnpodcast@gmail.com. On Google Plus, we just look for the Glowburn community. And for me, Judge James, I'm at I Live for Crits, the number 4, and livingforcrits.com is where my blog lives. Forrest?
You can reach me on Twitter at ForrestAguirre. That's ForrestAguirre, exactly like it sounds. And my blog is at forrestaguirre.blogspot.com. Brendan, how can we get a hold of you?
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at Brendan J. LaSalle. I am also at Maximum Xcrawl, if you wanted to go that route. I have a blog too. I don't go there very much, but it's Brendan J. LaSalle Design Blog. It's a blogger blog. If you just search me, you'll find it. I haven't put a post up there, I don't know, in a year or two. But I'm busy, so there you go.
All right, thank you.
If you're interested in stuffing things, why, try my blog.
So our special thanks and credits go out to our shaman of intros, outros, and bumpers, Bob the Voice Brinkman.
Woo!
Patron AI of audio-visual engineering, Hector the Missile Cruz.
Woo!
Our creative advisors, our Google Plus community, currently 197 strong.
Woo!
Our intro and outro song is Juno on the Voyager album by Chronox. And we want to thank our special guest, Brendan LaSalle, for taking the time to spend time with us. Thank you very much.
Woo!
All right. James, what do you have for closing words?
Well, I don't want my 10-year-old daughter to think I forgot about her when I was discussing my gaming last week. This past Saturday, my daughter, Judge Evie, ran her very first game of DCC as a judge. And I'm so proud of you, Evie, and I look forward to having you TPK all of my 0 levels again after you did that to both me and your sister Carrie last weekend, whereas the rest of the party strangely survived except for me and her. But I don't take it personal. I totally understand, and thank you for running such a fantastic adventure.
That's awesome.
I said it on Facebook, and I'll say it again here. Being in an Eevee game is now on my bucket list.
Oh, yeah.
I mean to play.
Be careful what you wish for.
All right, we'll see you all at GaryCon. I'm looking forward to killing and dying with you. Brendan, what do you have for a parting shot?
Well, okay, I would say this. Let's just talk about strictly mutations, okay? If you know the mother's genome and the father's genome, and you see that the children have some genes that neither parent has, then you know that the difference is either a mutation or a processing error.
All right.
Ariel, Ookla, ride!
Blood of your enemy makes you stronger.
This has been a Hectophonic production.
The gun is good, the gun is